Hello, this is the second part of Foxfire by NeonZangetsu. Link will be in the description. All author's notes have been removed between chapters. Also, any explicit NSFW scene will be removed. This part will cover Chapter 9 to 18. Chapter 9. I don't know what to do. Neither do I. Tilda. They know nothing. The cannibals slept. His was a restless slumber. But rest the old worm did, having chosen a sandy shoal to recuperate from his injuries. He had retreated to the southern side of Dragonstone to gnaw on old whalebones and lick at his wounds, alongside a damaged ego besides, all the better to recover tonight and prepare for his next great fight, for that final confrontation he so furiously craved. For you see, the Golden One had surprised him. It was not purely prey as it had assumed, but dangerous as well. It had fought back, rebuffed him, hurt him even. Mere prey could not do such. Indeed, it could no longer remember anyone who had. No dragon ever had, and he was not a dragon. Nor was he prey. He had become a rival. An enemy to face and respect, but also one to be wary of. They would face one another again, and when they did, the world would tremble. Only then would it have its desire meal. Only then would it finally find a feast that would satisfy it once and for all. Something landed atop his back squarely between his shoulders. An eerie yet familiar voice filled his ears. "Hi, Tilda." The night fell silent, and then Cannibal went wild, absolutely berserk as he hadn't been in centuries. Screaming and snapping and snarling, thrashing for his very life, he utilized every inch of his body. Great muscles heaved to throw the impudent human off, only for him to cling to his back like a leech. Impudent mortal! How dare he! A mighty gravelly hiss rumbled from his ancient jaws as he beat his wings, determined to shake him off to no avail. "Calm down. I just want to talk." Talk? There would be no talking. Only fire and blood. Ash and death. Hey, stop that. He felt strong hands cling to the sharpened spines of his shoulders, heard the startled realization. His voice. "No. Bad dragon. Don't you dare." Oh, yes, he dared. The man's voice peaked into a startled yelp as the Kanbal reared back into the air and rocketed into the clouds with him still on his back. Each beat of his wings was a hurricane, slower perhaps than a smaller dragon, yet through sheer size he covered impossible distance that no ordinary dragon could. In a matter of moments, Dragonstone was left far behind. Yet still the fool clung on. Cannibal kept flying, further and further now, twisting and turning in the air, trying to shake them off, until they reached the mainland. They passed fields below and a great city, alive even at night. He soared over them all, higher and higher, the sheer storm from his wings battering down the unwary. Little humans scurried about below, pointing and screaming at his majesty. He screamed at them and they fled into their houses. A spindly bearded man watched from one of the tallest towers as he climbed higher still, haggard face pale in the full moonlight. He gestured wildly and shouted orders to armoured men, trying to rally them in the face of his arrival, for all the good it did them. Arrows skittered off his black hide, bolts went wide, and still the man shouted on. His voice irked Cannibal. He barked a plume of green flame their way, forcing those noisy fools to duck back for cover or burn alive in their armour. Many of them fell from the oh-so-high tower, shrieking to strike the cobblestones below, leaving a red ruin behind. The cannibal could smell his kin now, the unfamiliar stench of the dragon pit. Hunger stirred in him, yet it was eclipsed by panic, because the man wasn't letting go, and his strength was beginning to falter. And so he wheeled away from the capital. "I'm not letting go," the damnable oaf snarled at him. "You'll give out before I do." The Golden One was right. He flew and flew and flew until he could fly no more, until his wounds ached and his wings started to fail him. He circled back to Dragonstone, each beat of his wingspan growing heavier. He saw his lair in the distance, far at first, then growing close, closer, closest. He heard the Golden One swear atop his back. Ah, shit, then he dove. His aim had been to shake the Golden One off with the force of his landing. In that, he somewhat succeeded. The sheer force of his impact rattled them both and tore a deep furrow in the earth and rattled their skulls. He heard his would-be rider groan atop his back and almost dared to hope. It wasn't enough. He failed. He knew it the moment a boot stamped down on his neck, smashing him to the ground. Something vaulted off his back. Cannibal whirled and flamed him with his breath in mid-air. bathing the boy in sheets of seething green napalm. Why was he looking at scorched stone? Nope. A voice cried out to left, well away from the blaze. Not getting hit by that again. Now just calm down. I want to talk. Strong jaws snapped at him. Hey, hey! He caught his snout, stopping him short. Cut that out! I know you can understand me. Baleful red eyes glared up at him. A wild dragon like you doesn't live this long without learning human speech. Can you talk? You seem smart enough for it. A low rumble was his reward. No, he would not speak the language of man, though he knew it. He was old beyond counting. Never had he been broken. Never would he be mastered. He was not the greatest of dragons, but he was he who remained. Never would he yield, never would he submit, never would he irk. In an instant, he found himself face to face with the giant golden fox again. Massive golden claws closed around his snout, holding his jaws shut. Not the answer I'm looking for. What in blazes was he? You're angry with me. I get it. But you know what they say. Third time's the charm. He tried to thrash free, but the fox wasn't holding back this time and held him fast. We've fought twice now. The third time will be the last. Then you won't get to choose. He leaned closer, reflection gleaming in a giant iris. You will be my friend, or I'll put you down. I'll regret it and probably myself for it, but I can't have you attacking my precious people like that again. Think real carefully about this. Without warning, the pressure on his snout abruptly eased. Cannibal thrashed upright, wings flaring. No use. The golden one was gone. 0.0.0. Naruto walked up the castle wall, found the window slit, and slipped inside. With all the unnatural grace of a peerless shinobi, he crept down the halls to their room, guiding himself by moonlight and memory. No one saw him. No one heard him. No one challenged him. Really, after that wild fight and flight he had, it was almost anticlimactic. His hand found the door handle, and just like that, he was in. The room itself wasn't a terribly large one, but it served his needs. It was cozy enough, and if one listened, you could hear the sounds of the sea from the window. He'd been asked by Viserys to share it with Rhaenyra, and reluctantly accepted when it became clear the latter wouldn't take no for an answer. It spoke well of the king and queen that they trusted him that much, but there were thankfully 2 beds on either side of the room, and she was sound asleep in her cot as he closed the door behind him. He could see her pale hair from here, her face serene in sleep. For some reason, he found himself stricken by the urge to check in on her. She was fine, probably. Wouldn't do to wake her up now, would it? Besides, she'd ask why he smelled like dragon again, and that was a story he really didn't want to tell right now. Yeah, sure. That was a good excuse, right? Kurama heaved a hearty sigh. Dolt. How long will you refuse to see? How am I the dolt? Verbal jabs aside, was rather pleased with his little excursion, all in all. He'd made contact with the cannibal, really needed to find another name for the old boy, and offered him an olive branch. Time would tell if the surly old worm listened to him. He hoped he would. It seemed a shame to hurt such a gorgeous beast. After all, he saw no reason they couldn't be friends. Naruto, that thing tried to eat you. Twice. Meh. He shrugged one shoulder as he kicked off his boots and tugged off his shirt. Some of my best friends have tried to kill me. The blankets were blessedly soft, warm too, just as he remembered. He slid between them, tugging the covers over his chin with a sigh. Exhaustion was all too happy to claim him after that little misadventure, and he gave himself to it gladly. He'd be sore come morning, he knew, but it was well worth it. Blue eyes drifted shut, and then his 6th sense screamed. Instinct took over. Me? He reached for the knife under his pillow and sat up. When no attack was immediately forthcoming, his brow furrowed in confusion. There was no one nearby. Everyone was sound asleep in their beds, or nearly. Not a soul to be seen or heard. And yet he still sensed it, a bolt of negativity, a surge of panic coming from... Rhaenyra bolted upright in her bed with a shrill, startled shriek, eyes wide, chest heaving. No! He quickly stowed the knife, released a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Oh! She'd just been having a nightmare. Must have been quite the dream at that, because Rhaenyra took one look at him and threw back her blankets, all but bolting to his side. She launched herself at him. Instinct won the day once again, leaving him to catch her shoulders with both arms as her head crashed against his chest. There was no time to think or protest, only to hold her. They died, they all died, she babbled at him, half mad with fear. I saw everything burning, dragons falling from the sky. No one's dead, he drawled patiently, idly massaging the small of her back. You just had a bad dream. Breathe. She didn't seem to hear him. She was too busy clinging to him for dear life, burying her head in his torso. They're dead! They're all dead! Oh gods, I saw them die! Mother, father, all of them! I was eaten by a golden dragon. Hey! He gave her a quick shake, hating himself for the pained noise she made. Rhaenyra, look at me. His voice dropped an octave, commanding her attention. There we go. Look at me. Only me. Nothing else. Do you see me? She dared a quick, tremulous nod, and he leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers. You are alive. Nobody killed anyone. We're here on Dragonstone with your family. Remember? You're safe. She blinked once and slowly came back to herself, the glazed look of panic peeling back. Yes, of course, I remember. Good. He leaned back to smile at her. Just keep breathing. Mistakes were made. Because he saw. Rhaenyra stared up at him, sobbing softly, all but sat in his lap legs sprawled out beneath her, tangled up in his. She seemed a pale ghost in the moonlight, her eyes wide and red, her cheeks wet with tears, chest heaving as she struggled to bring her breathing under control. Belatedly, he realized she was only wearing a white shift and nothing else. He could see the barest outline of her breasts. She wasn't a girl anymore. He was looking at a young woman. The realization startled him. Something flashed in her eyes. Maybe it was the panic. Maybe it was the nightmare. Whatever it was, it had her leaning forward, tilting her head, and bridging the gap between them. Her lips were softer than winter's first blush, then thrice as sweet. It was everything he'd ever wanted in a kiss. He didn't know what to do, what to say, how to respond. She'd done what he hadn't dared to do, and now the world had changed because he saw, because he understood, because he realized. He absolutely panicked. His body jerked back from hers, leaped out of bed, and made for the door on the far side of the room. Naruto? Her voice rose in a plaintive whine. What are you doing? Where are you going? He covered his eyes with one hand. I think I need some air. Please don't go. I don't want to be alone. 9 little words rooted him where he stood, left him gripping the door handle with such force that he physically felt the iron buckle under his grasp. Please. It sounded like she would shatter if he did. Stay. His already tenuous self-control began to fray at the seams, bit by bit. He waved a hand to her, words garbled. Just bed. Back in your bed, please. Why? Because I can't control myself right now. He absolutely didn't trust his restraint with her looking like that. Not after what she'd just done. He had thought he'd done a good job dancing around the subject, but seeing her here and now, so exposed, so vulnerable, so very… No. He mustn't. It would be a betrayal of everything he stood for. You didn't just go and take a man's daughter after he'd invited you into his home. It just wasn't done. Unless he allows such. Kurama was ever the devil on his shoulder. The king's been hinting at this for a while now. Has he? I thought he was being nice. You blind bloody fool. You don't see. Or are you simply afraid to see? Oi! I ain't afraid. Then why are you cowering before a girl in a white shift? He wasn't sure what he wanted. After all, he'd never felt this way about anyone before. For so long now, he'd enjoyed Rhaenyra's company. But this, he was out of his depth. Here. Rhaenyra must have seen the indecision in his face, or maybe just the tension in his shoulders, because she finally left his bed. Bare feet padded across the floor. She didn't touch him, didn't say a word. Didn't do anything until he turned around and faced her of his own volition. She waited patiently as he took his hand away from the door, lowered his palm from his eyes. Then she stood on the very tips of her toes, leaned up, and kissed him. It felt even better the second time. She was bolder about it this time and not quite as panicked, daring to move her mouth across his for a moment before pulling away. His hands twitched at his sides. You don't want this. I disagree. And so do you, don't you? He might. Now that he thought on it further, now that he considered the possibility anew, he realized it. By the sage, he'd never wanted someone so badly before. That nightmare had shaken something loose in her tonight. He could see the anxiety in her gaze, the need to be comforted, the desire to be held. Truth be told, he wanted to comfort her too. He just didn't know how. She reached up to cup his face in her hand and gently steer his face back to hers. Mercifully, she didn't kiss him again. He'd lose all semblance of control if her lips found his a third time, but they didn't. She just held on to him. His hands settled around her waist in return. I don't know what to do. Nor do I. The words burst out of her in anxious little laugh, caught somewhere between a sigh and a sob as she nuzzled his chest. I'm as new to this as you are. His eyes widened. So you're... Her head whipped up to glare at him. Finish that sentence and I shall be very cross with you. It was such a Rhaenyra thing to say. It made him laugh as well. And with the laughter, the tension shattered. Was this love? He didn't know. It was too soon to know. But he was willing to find out. After all, he'd never know if he didn't try. That's the way. Hush up in there! You! I'm cold. Rhaenyra shivered in his arms, clutching at her bare shoulders. Let's go back to bed. Let's. He knew precisely what she was implying. What else could he say to that? He went first and she followed him, slipping into the blankets after he made room for her. No hesitation on her part, none whatsoever. She clearly didn't want to sleep alone tonight after that awful nightmare, and he wasn't inclined to force the issue when she was in such a state. A thought occurred to him then. About that dream you had, what of it? She answered a tad too quickly as she snuggled closer. It was just a dream, a nightmare really. It won't come to pass. Her hands linked behind his back and she pressed herself against him, her every curve moulding with his. I don't want to talk about dreams. He felt her fingernails dig into his back. I don't even want to dream tonight. Her words sparked something in his chest. Blue eyes flitted down to seek her. Violet orbs gazed back intently. He leaned down, then hesitated at the last second just to be certain. Go on. She angled her head up to meet him, lips brushing his. I want you to. The last of Naruto's restraint broke. With a low growl, he dove down the rest of the way and kissed her deeply. Rhaenyra inhaled sharply, moving her hands behind his neck, linking them there to draw her closer. His palms settled against her hips in return. That seemed to please her. He felt her smile against him, caught the delighted gleam in her eye. He dipped lower in a fit of frenzy, kissing her throat, and she gasped before kissing him in return. Her lips sought his, and there was a hunger to her now. An eagerness, a curiosity, all happily reciprocated. Why had he ever pushed her away? This was heaven. This was bliss. His fingers found the straps of her gown as her hands seized on his trousers. Her body pressed against his, skin to skin, her smile a pure delight. His hands found her rear as her fingers sought his chest, trailing across every scar there. She laid a kiss upon each one, and he lavished attention upon her breasts in return, rendering her a moaning, squirming mess under his hands until, finally, she climbed atop him. He was ready for her, and she him. No words were needed, nothing simpler. From there, the night descended into a carnal haze. Chapter 10. Love is a precious thing. I had always hoped that you might find your own. Do not worry about the realm. Leave that to me. Follow your heart, child. Tilda, a good king. Never forsake me, Viserys heard them. Indeed, how could he not? His dear daughter and Naruto tried to keep quiet, and to be fair, they made a good attempt at it, but he was not a father for nothing. He knew the signs. Likewise, he knew what was coming, what had been coming for quite some time now. Sound carried quite far here in Dragonstone. With the fortress mostly empty and his quarters nearby, he'd heard quite a bit more than he cared to admit. There had been a brief bout of initial panic when he first heard his daughter's wild shout, but then he'd heard the noises that came afterward, and, well, he'd been young once. Even now knew what to listen for. A slow smile spread across his face. And so it begins. This might cause chaos in the realm. No, it undoubtedly would, but he couldn't bring himself to care. Let them have their moment. Let them be happy. Let them choose, as so many in this world were unable to. They were stronger together. They would face whatever might come in their stead, and if that pack of parasites in King's Landing tried to push them apart, they wouldn't live to regret it. Why are you smiling? Emma was a bit slower to catch on, but once she did... Oh, she sat up in bed beside him. Well, I suppose they shall have to marry one another after all. He quirked a pale brow at her. Was it not you who wagered that she would break first? She laughed. I believe you said he'd be the one to court her. You wound me, dear wife. Then his queen kissed him, and he thought no more of the night. 0.0. Rhaenyra got her wish. She didn't dream one bit that night. On the contrary, she slept the sleep of one most thoroughly exhausted, and when she did wake, it was to a most pleasant soreness, pervading her very being. She stirred to a warm bed, warm blankets, and an even warmer body tucked against her. An arm was draped over her waist almost protectively. She found herself snuggling into its owner for a moment before she realized where she'd wound up. The who, what, when and why of it all. It was, in a word, bliss. She opened her eyes to the early morning light, remembered where she was and felt no panic, no pain, only sweet catharsis. Her body was sore, yes, but also sated. She'd fed a terrible hunger that had been gnawing at her for some time now, and she'd be damned if she felt sorry for herself now that they, both of them, had taken that final fateful step together. Looking up, she confirmed her helpless hopes with a pleased sigh. A small, satisfied, sleepy smile slowly slid across her face. Finally, she snuggled back down and took a long, lingering look at her lover. Naruto seemed so harmless, sprawled out beside her in sleep, downright innocent, even. Well, maybe not so innocent now. She'd gone and corrupted him, or maybe he had been the one to corrupt her. Perhaps they'd simply changed one another. Yes, she rather liked the sound of that, among other things. Her hand trailed his chest, tracing the scars there, pale silvery things that had healed well in some places, and not so in others. Each was a testament to every battle he'd been in, all those he'd saved and failed to save. She wondered if he would ever speak of them. Perhaps in time. Not now. Later. In hindsight, Rhaenyra knew it would be wise to rise and face the coming dawn. But in the same vein, she had no desire to move whatsoever. Perhaps a few more seconds or minutes, maybe hours. A few hours were just what the maesters ordered. That sounded nice. The world could take care of its problems without them for a while yet. She closed her eyes and let herself drift back into the black. Humming softly to herself, she laid her head down on his chest and resolved to savor the moment. Questions could come later. The future was of no immediate concern at the moment. For now, she wanted to just be. She tucked her head into his chest and wrapped her arms around his waist. "Don't let me go," she whispered. "Not ever." A chuckle, then she caught his voice in the low light. "I hear you." Her eyes snapped open. Gods be good. How much of that had he heard? 0.00. He really did love her. The realization should have shocked Naruto. Once upon a time, it might have. Now? He found he'd grown to care for Rhaenyra. Deeply. Completely. Absolutely. He enjoyed being around her. All her curves and all her edges, all her surly imperfections. She wasn't perfect, and neither was he. Good. Perfection was boring. Being perfect meant there was no room for improvement, no chance to change, be better than you were, no opportunity to truly excel. He despised perfection. Nothing should be truly perfect in this world. Besides, there could be no turning back now. Rhaenyra snugged closer to him. "Are you awake?" He sighed into her shoulder. "A little." "Still sleepy?" She hummed, dipped her head up, and kissed him, sending a pleasant electric thrill shooting through his body. Did Westeros even have electricity? Probably not. Ideas for later. He found himself pulling her closer regardless of such thoughts, to which she happily melted into his embrace. For a single blessed moment, all was well. And then, we'll have to tell my father, of course. Naruto made weary Naruto noises into the pillows. Yeah, that was going to be a thing. He hoped Viserys was all right with this. "He might drag us to a septon before sunset," Rhaenyra continued, an impish gleam in her eye. Wouldn't that be something? Kurama barked a laugh in his head. "Hello, shotgun wedding." They shared a brief laugh at that. Would it be so bad, really? He looked down at her. Would what now? Being wed. She threaded her fingers through his and squeezed his hands gently. Not here and now, of course, but someday. And just like that, his mind was away, sprinting headlong into the sunrise with a giddy cackle. He had a wild image of Rhaenyra clad in a wedding dress cut sinfully short, of carrying her in his arms across the threshold as one might a princess, then of her sprawled out on bed, lifting her legs for him. I see that look in your eyes. Her own went half-lidded, regarding him with all the intensity of roiling dragonfire. Thinking about it already, are we? He dared to lean down and peck her on the lips, delighting in the pleased noise she made. Thinking of tearing you out of your wedding dress. She laughed as he ran a hand over her flank, even as her own danced across his chest. Such a charmer. What can I say? I learned from the best. Something flashed across her face then. there and gone before he could get a proper read on it. Naruto felt the fear that followed, a sudden surge of nameless primordial panic. Belatedly, he recognized it, the same fear from last night when she'd had that terrible, horrible dream. Or was it a vision? Did Targaryens have those? He sensed her emotions coalescing, hardening into a fiery pearl of defiance as she grappled with her anxiety and finally got the better of it. Yet still she didn't speak, not at first. She was silent for a long moment, weighing her words. And then her eyes met his. "Never betray me, Naruto." "Why would I do that?" Kurama sighed. "You might be powerful, and that gives you confidence, but she doesn't have that kind of power." Huh, fair point. He wanted to laugh it off, to say it would be fine, but one look from Rhaenyra told him she'd absolutely bite him if he made light of her now. Fine. If she needed encouragement, he could afford to be serious, just this once. And so he clasped his hands in hers. "Never forsake me, and I'll never forsake you." Sound good? Rhaenyra shuddered, not in fear but delight. Those wild violet eyes, narrowed not with mischief, but the darkest of desires. In that instant, he thought she just might jump him. Consequences be damned. She pushed him down, crawled into his lap, and pressed her forehead to his. Her lips sought his with heat, and he found himself returning it for all of a moment before she pulled away. He wondered if she would try and ride him right then and there. It looked like she wanted to, but no, she leaned back, perched happily in his lap. "And you have my word that I will never forsake you." She seemed to be taking this seriously, if nothing else. "Now then, let us speak of Alicent." His face began to burn for an entirely different reason. "Am I going to enjoy this conversation?" "Oh, yes." She leaned in, whispering into his ear now. "You will." As luck would have it, Naruto did. Very much indeed. 0.0, they knew. Mother took one look at them come breakfast, and Rhaenyra knew there could be no keeping secrets from her. She didn't say anything. Not a word. Then again, she didn't have to. She just smiled. Nor was she the only who noticed. Father raised a goblet of wine in silent solidarity and nodded Naruto's way as they joined them for breakfast. Heat speared through her companion's face. No one protested. Was that it, then? Were they going to go about their business as normal? She'd known Mother favored Naruto, but she'd expected at least some semblance of confusion, maybe congratulations. Not these subtle smiles and nods. They baffled her beyond belief. Had she known it would be this easy, that the two of them would be accepted so wholeheartedly, she would have jumped him ages ago. Of course, that wasn't to say no one reacted. Alicent had always been a clever girl, and she put two and two together quickly. Rhaenyra saw it as her friend's face crumpled in disbelief. The pain, the realization, the suffering. Perhaps she had fancied Naruto in her own way, or perhaps she simply despaired at being left further and further in the dust. Whatever the case, Rhaenyra saw the precise moment Alicent Hightower broke. Such a sight was something she prayed never to see again, if only because of the pain she'd inadvertently caused her. With a wordless noise, her dearest friend turned and fled. Oh, no. They weren't having any of that. She gave chase. It would be a small matter to track her down, even less to corner her. She knew Dragonstone better than Alicent ever could. All the places to hide. Naruto made to follow her, but Father grabbed his arm and he let himself be guided back down into his seat. Good. Alicent would listen to her if it was just the two of them, she knew. She had to. She must. Now came perhaps her greatest battle of the day. She hunted her friend down like a dragon. It was the best day of her life. 0.0. This was the worst day of her life. Here and now, in this very moment, Alicent wanted nothing more than to curl up into a ball and die. To simply shrivel away beneath her sheets and perish in bed. If the gods were good, they would grant her request. But the gods were not good, and so she was left to suffer. She wept, great heaving sobs racking her chest until her eyes ran red and her very breath betrayed her. It felt as if she were choking out her last gasps. Yet still the anguish in her heart strangled her. The door parted. Blast! She'd forgotten to latch it. A groan pushed past her lips and into the pillow, muffled by misery. Go away. I will do no such thing. She heard the mattress creak as Rhaenyra sat beside her. What's wrong with you? Me? What's wrong with you? Rhaenyra considered that for a moment. Nothing at all. Sniffling, she dared to look at her at last. You mean to marry him? Someday. Rhaenyra rubbed her finger, perhaps imagining a ring on it, and looked away with a wry smile. She almost seemed to glow in the early morning light. After all, we only just ahem. She coughed into a fist to master herself and the memory. Things are still new. Fresh. She stumbled over the last word. It's quite a lot to take in. Curiosity reared its ugly head in Alicent's heart. Was it really that good? Yes. Her face went a little red. There was pain at first, but afterwards it was quite pleasant. Why would you care so much unless... Oh. You're fond of him. Alicent looked away, not trusting herself. I'm not. Her denial came just a tad too quickly. Rhaenyra's gaze widened in realization, and was that delight? No, surely not. You are? Why didn't you say something? What could I say, Rhaenyra? She spun away with an anguished sound. That I fancy him? That I find him a dashing gentleman? Because she had, and she did, and now she was entirely too late to do anything. The princess tilted her head. Then why do you complain? I do not know. Truly she didn't. I'm tired of dancing around this. Aren't you? Can we not be free? Happy even? She dared a step closer to her. Do you not want to be free? The fire faded in her. Of course I do. Then be free. Her friend flung up her arms. Cast off the chains your father has thrust upon you, do as you wish, and to the seven hells what anyone thinks of you. How easy it is for you to say that. Her voice peaked, rising in distress. You're a princess. The world itself is your oyster. It could be yours too. Rhaenyra snapped back. Her mind fizzled. I beg your pardon. Rhaenyra stepped to her with frightful speed, further evidence of her training, and took her by the hands. I am free to marry whomsoever I wish. She ran her fingers over hers, tracing her knuckles gently. And I do not wish to choose between you and Naruto. There will always be room in my heart for the both of you. Alicent's face began to burn. Both? Her dearest friend smiled. Both. Words clogged in her throat. Oh, so she meant... Oh. But that would mean, oh! She understood now. She'd heard tell of such things before. Decadently depraved acts. The kind of stories one really shouldn't read this side of the narrow sea. It went against everything she'd ever been told or taught by father. She knew she should refuse out of hand. It would be the proper thing to do. And yet the thought burrowed into her brain. It became a thorn pricking at her side to hold her back, flooding her mind with possibilities. She'd never even considered it. Rhaenyra had always and ever been friend first, princess second, and now she didn't know what she was to her. She tried to rally. I am not a whore. I am not asking you to be. Rhaenyra's smile was sensual sin. I've discussed it with him, and he's quite all right with it. Rhaenyra kissed her cheek. Not her lips, but the implicit promise was there, a gift left for her to claim. Her eyes flitted to her lips, idly wondering what they might taste like if she kissed her, what it might feel like to be trapped between her and Naruto. Every fibre of her body burned. I must think on this. Rhaenyra let her hand go with a small smile. Take all the time you need. We'll be returning to the capital shortly. Think on it. Alicent did not run. She still had some semblance of dignity despite desire swarming its way through her. She forced herself to walk away gracefully, chin up, head held high. She'd never been with another man or woman. The thought was strange, unusual, provocative. And so it was, with another little nudge and a few soft words. The seed Rhaenyra had planted began to bloom. 0.00. Their return to the capital was a grand affair. Too grand, some might say, full of pomp and circumstance and all manner of things Naruto didn't care for. The people of King's Landing were delighted to see them once more, but their true delight lay in the sight of the dragons. Vermithor and Silverwing wheeled high above them in the sky with skyracks, calling out to cheering masses below. It all seemed so overdone. Maybe that was just his nature. He enjoyed parades to be sure, but he didn't like being at the centre of one. Rhaenyra kept shooting him little looks out the corner of her eye, and if she sat a little closer than necessary, he didn't complain. He would miss Dragonstone. Otto was waiting for them at the gates. Welcome home, Your Grace. Viserys frowned at the sight of his hand. Where is Daemon? The silence that followed proved weighty indeed. I'm afraid I bear grim news. The hand of the king bowed his head low. Prince Daemon has fallen ill. Chapter 11. You overreach yourself, boy. No, I overreach you. I will always overreach you. Tilda. The approaching storm demon was indeed ill. Rhaenyra found Naruto quick to assess the situation. Quicker still to claim the maester's quarters for treatment, then quickest yet to throw her complaining uncle on a cot commencing treatment. Under his expert ministrations, he soon ascertained the cause, and she watched intently as her dear heart laid healing hands on the man's chest. Much to her surprise, he drew them back thrice as fast. How long have you been drinking poison? Naruto questioned as he looked at Demon seriously, somewhat startled that this was now the second time he has removed a lethal poison from a living person's failing body. A Targaryen, no less. It was too convenient, too much of a coincidence to ignore. Something was going on around this castle, and the Uzumaki did not like it one bit. Demon tried to sit up in bed, only for a palm to force him back down. What? Why would I? It's been in your blood for a little over 3 months by now, Naruto said with a look of apprehension on his face. Demon thumped the bed with his fist. That damn snake Otto! Not once, not twice, but thrice, he snarled. Naruto's brow shot straight into his hair. She imagined her expression mirrored his. That was a damning accusation. Rhaenyra shook her head at her uncle. You don't know that. I know enough, he scoffed. Enough to know he's trying to grab power not his own. He grumbled. Besides, who else would want me dead? I mean, he isn't wrong. It is politics. Naruto shrugged. An even better way to say it. Demon stated with a snort. Fucking cunt has been after my head for who knows how long now. Guess he was waiting for me to take an arrow to the knee or some such, lad. Naruto rose a brow. Do you really want me to answer that question? Her elbow jabbed his ribs mercilessly. Naruto. He raised his hands up. All right, all right. Demon sighed as he rolled over with a grunt. His keen gaze settled upon them and lingered for a moment. What? At length he smiled. So finally did the deed, did you? Rhaenyra thumped him on the arm even as Naruto choked behind her. As such, it was she who found her voice first. How in the seven's hells did you know? Demon smirked back. I have my ways. The rogue prince sat up, looking every bit the amused uncle. And how did my dear brother take it? I assumed he approved? Fire. Her face is on fire. She wanted to curl up into a ball and die. Not from shame, she had nothing to be ashamed about, nor would she for finally finding her own happiness, but rather that Demon had sussed them out so easily. She wouldn't breathe a word about Alicent, not a single solitary word. He'd never let her be if she did, and she refused to betray her friend's trust should she intend to join them, even if she dearly wanted her to shutting up. Face, fire, unending embarrassment. Come now. Demon loosed a low chortle, doubtless mistaking her silence for anger. Don't make that face. I'm happy for the two of you. Rhaenyra paused. You are? She asked. Prove it. Naruto crossed his arms. Demon snorted in response. Why would I lie about such a thing? Of course I am. The people may hate me, but they'll love you. She could hear the honesty in his words, and it worried her more than she cared to admit. How can you say that? Demon hummed to himself merrily, quite easily in fact. The small folk love a good romance. A boy with no wealth, no tiles, no lands, and yet somehow, he gave a poke to Rhaenyra just above the collarbone, he managed to win your heart. The bards will have a field day with that alone. His words trailed off in a soft hum. Stop teasing me, uncle. She burned red. Demon jerked back at her response. Have mercy on an ill man. Can I not have a little fun? Rhaenyra huffed and flounced away. Not when it comes to this, you can't. She answered. Naruto moved to follow after her. Demon snagged his sleeve. A word? If you'd please. 0.0. Upon the prince's request, he lingered at Demon's side. Naruto looked at the older man with a curious gaze. What is it? He asked the rider of the bloodworm. This is your last chance to back away, you know. His brow furrowed. Fire and blood, you know those are our words. The Targaryen words. A fist thumped his chest. They might be your own someday, if you marry into the family. But know this. His wry gaze hardened suddenly, becoming sharp as steel. Break my little niece's heart, and I shall run my sword through yours. He, as he sat up, gaining a look that quite frankly reminded him of an old friend. Are we clear? Naruto nodded, crystal. And Rhaenyra's not so little anymore, you know. She's old enough to make her own decisions. I'm well aware. If I die, do me a favor and gut Otto, won't you? He asked, extending his hand. Naruto smirked as he clasped his palm. Happily. 0.0. Alicent longed for more. No, she mustn't. It was improper. Terribly, horribly improper in the worst of ways. Yet she couldn't forget what had transpired on Dragonstone. The feel of Rhaenyra's mouth on hers, her lips caging her own, the flutter of her heart, the realization that she need not be alone. The unspoken promise of passion, an offer of a night beyond her wildest dreams, if she just gave in. Naruto was sweet, gentle, caring. He had proven himself kind and true, but she'd never been touched by a man before. Would it be just as good as she hoped? No. Could it be so much better? No, she didn't think anything could be better than that first kiss, with Rhaenyra stop thinking about that. But she couldn't now, could she? She doubted she would be able to go to anyone else ever again after that kiss. Alicent buried her head deep in her pillow and heaved a long, suffering sigh. Blast Rhaenyra for dragging her into this madness. She'd ruined her. She would have them take responsibility for this. Both of them! 0.0. Naruto entered the throne room at a steady pace. As ever, he took a moment to admire his surroundings, no matter how many times he came here. The Iron Throne really did look imposing these days, didn't it? But he wasn't here to sightsee now, was he? Viserys awaited him upon the Iron Throne in full regalia, crown atop his head, hands resting upon the hilt of his sword, its Valyrian steel edge digging into the stones below. It made for an imposing image. One might even think him an accomplished swordsman, when the truth was anything but. He looked proud. Proud but weary. The latter faded a little when he saw him. You wanted to see me? Yes. There are things of which I would speak with you. Naruto blanched. Here it comes. Rhaenyra has chosen you. It was as close as he would come to saying she loved him. It is a match I admittedly hoped to make for her, but she made it for me. As such, he sat up a little straighter upon the Iron Throne as he looked on. I am entrusting you with my daughter, my very blood, that which I value more than anything else in this world. She has chosen you. He leaned on the word when he said it again, emphasizing it. As you have chosen her. Do not break her heart. His eyes narrow intently. I shall be very cross with you if you do. Well. Wasn't today full of warnings? Frankly, I'm more worried about her breaking me, he muttered under his breath. Ha! That got a laugh out of the old king. She has her mother's fire. He wished the moment could last. Naruto's look soon turned serious. Unfortunately, I gotta talk you about something. Less pleasant. Viserys cocked his head to the side in curiosity. How so? Taking a deep breath, he barreled forward. Remember when we found out Emma was poisoned? Viserys nodded silently. I do. That was a dark day, but you healed her. She is still well, I trust? Unless? No. He waved a hand quickly. She's fine. I just find it funny the moment we get back from Dragonstone, someone else fell ill all of a sudden. He made quotation marks with both hands, and the timing of it just doesn't add up. Demon. He saw the moment Viserys understood. Otto said he fell ill. He let the words fall between them. If only that were true. Naruto answered. Didn't Demon warn you about him before? I believe he's done it on multiple occasions. The old king went terribly still. This is a grave accusation you lay at my feet. Do you have any proof? Naruto shook his head. No, not yet, but I'll know soon, one way or the other. Thought it would be better to warn you, just in case something happens to me. Better to prepare a plan and not need it than have no plan at all. I'm not arrogant enough to say I'm invincible, you know. I dare say you're close enough. The king's laughter was strained even to his ears. I trust you to act discreetly in this matter. Naruto granted him a careworn smile and thumped his fist with a chest. Hey, I can be subtle when I need to be, you know. In this world, there was no such thing as DNA tests or cameras, or any means of recording someone. He could sense negative intent, yes, but how did you prove that to regular people? No, it would come down to his word against Otto's. This time, he would make no mistakes. Be prepared. 0.0. Well, how was he? Emma smiled at her eldest daughter Rhaenyra balked as her cheeks became red. Mother! It was just a question, dear heart. She tried to look backward, only for a hand to tug on her hair. Blast. This was why she didn't let anyone care for it. Come now, her mother soothed as she brushed her long locks. Your father and I were of a similar age when we were wed. There's no shame in it. Now what if we did your hair like this? I am not ashamed, she edged out hesitantly. It's just, we only began courting a short while ago. I do not wish to speak of such things so freely. But you enjoyed him. Rhaenyra made exasperated Rhaenyra noises. Mother was relentless. And yet you intend to have him as your husband by the end of it. Anyone else would have been subject to a slap. But not Mother. Emma was a stabilizing influence on her. Not for the first time, Rhaenyra thanked her lucky stars. She was so glad she'd survived. She would have missed her terribly. Little Visenya, too. As though sensing that very thought, her baby sister cooed from her crib, ever under the watchful eye of her own little dragonling. Those two would truly be wild when they grew up. Her thoughts lingered on her sibling for a moment, and the softest of sighs escaped her lips. I intend to have Naruto as my husband, yes, and perhaps Alicent as my fellow wife. There it was, her feelings on the matter out in the open. She expected some semblance of shock, denunciation, even anger at the very least. Mother merely tilted her head and hummed, I thought there might be something there. You do realize this won't be seen as a popular decision, no? Rhaenyra scoffed in response. What we do in the Red Keep is our business, and ours alone. Emma granted her a nod. That may well be, but you will face resistance at every turn. Even so, will you still persist? What kind of question was that? She'd come much too far to turn back now. She lifted her chin. Even so, Mother kissed her forehead. Good girl. Her eyes widened a little as she continued. The blood of the dragon runs thick through your veins, does it not? A nod. Her smile grew. And you love Naruto, do you not? Fire lanced up her cheeks, but once again she nodded. Yes, she did. Good. She gave her cheek a pinch. Do that which makes you happy, my little dragon. And if people take issue with this, then to hell's with what others think of you. A warm smile caressed her worn face. In hindsight, she should have known it wouldn't end there. Not by a long shot. Now then, when do you intend to have your wedding? Rhaenyra flung up her arms. Mother! 0.0.0. That evening, minds were meeting to discuss how to bring about plans that were ages in the making. And, suddenly, they had to revise essentially everything they had, all thanks to a single chink in the chain. That boy is going to undo everything. A masked individual ranted with a snarl. 2 centuries of planning to end these incestuous purebloods and their lizards, and it could be stopped before we can even begin. Calm yourself, brother. Even if there is a chink in the chain, we can still revise and strategize on what to do when it comes to the boy. A female voice spoke. All we need to do is find a chink in the boy's armor. Shouldn't be that hard. Another man shrugged. All men had a weakness. All they needed was to find the boy's. How? The man is invulnerable to fire, dragonfire, and he battled the cannibal in open daylight with naught but his bare fists. The same man rounded in anger. How can we combat the man who can fight the beast that is now as large as the Black Dread itself, unarmored and unarmed? And not only that, but who knows how much life remains inside the beast, let alone this child who has ruined almost everything for us? He roared. Oh, boo-hoo. So the poison on the queen didn't work. Who cares? There is no male Targaryen to inherit the throne, aside from Daemon, who has no heirs to call upon to take control after. The third voice stated. In time, the poison inside the king's brother will take effect and he will die. Just like the king will, just like the dragon sees, just like all of those who are in power because we allow it to be so. And yet the boy has magic that can subservient all our efforts. A second female voice spoke. He healed the queen, and while her passing would have been sad, it would have paved way for Brother Otto to place Alicent up for the position to take over as queen while we ran the world from behind the scenes. She stated, let's just be glad that despite our most recent failure to kill the queen, succeeded in giving us a way to secure more time for ourselves. 2 princesses is better than having a male heir to legitimately inherit the throne, not including the king's brother. The first female spoke up. Let's focus on something specific here, shall we? A sixth voice spoke. Cannibal. He stated as everyone stiffened up. How in the name of the gods did he manage to temporarily mount the beast? He was seen clearly the other day flying about the capital, even burned down one of the towers of the castle. The speaker said, claims were made that there was somebody mounted upon the back of the creature. It could have been him. As unlikely as it seems, I have to agree. The first voice stated, if he manages to bring in the cannibal to the ranks of the Targaryen dragons, and successfully breeds it with any of the females. Then it could bolster the ranks of the dragon riders, and these self-proclaimed gods would have dragons that are not descended of old Valyria, he said. If, and this is a big one, this boy does claim cannibal, then we will poison it like we are doing the others. The poison we give the dragons in the pit are already stunted, growing smaller with each batch born from the eggs. Vergar is old, probably only another 50 to 60 years left in her. Vermithor, Silverwing, Caraxes and Miles have roughly a century each, give a decade or so, left to live. When these elder dragons die, the younger ones will have already birthed weaker hatchlings, and those will have birthed even weaker ones. Our long-term goal is already secured in that regard. The poison has to be administered directly into the food source, and on a daily basis, long-term or not, we cannot afford to be wasting such precocious resources on the beasts. The fourth voice spoke. Oh, really? And what exactly do you suggest? The first female demanded. And what of the boy? It's simple, really. The man stated as he began to explain to them in detail of what they would need to do, and then a secondary plan on what to do if that failed them. But before that, he lifted his mask and revealed a smile. The boy must die. Chapter 12. Our lives are the sum of our choices. Good, bad, blacks and greens. This is going to hurt you, Naruto. Let it. Pain's an old friend. I've gotten used to it. Their lives means more to me than mine. Your fate is already written. You'll die. All men do. Why are you laughing? Because! I stopped being human a long time ago. Fire can't hurt me. I can walk across water for crying out loud. Nothing can smother me. What you gonna do? Smite me with lightning? No? Didn't think so. Tilda. Kill the boy, he was dreaming yet again. Dreaming or having another nightmare. Given his luck as of late, it was likely the latter. Naruto suspected it the moment he heard those words. The second he opened his eyes and found himself in a bedroom of the Red Keep. Huh! He looked down at himself, frowned a little at his sleeping clothes, then some more now when he noticed the red on his hands and face. This is new. Lucid dreams were fairly rare, even for a Jinchuriki like himself, but this was different. He felt the cold stone floor against his bare feet, smelled the scent of burning torches. See, why was he holding a severed head in his right hand? A man's burly bearded visage balked up at him, face fixed in horror. He had a sickening feeling. He knew why the poor fellow was looking at him like that. Disgusted, he threw them away. Their skulls struck a wall, bounded off loudly, bounced once, and tumbled into the shadows. Right. He dragged a hand across his face, only to scowl when he wound up smearing more blood there. You can wake me up any day now, Kurama. Not a peep from the fox. That couldn't be good now, could it? A whimper behind him caused him to pivot. Confused, he peered over the nearest bed for its source. Much to his surprise, he found a young woman huddled behind said bedframe. A girl with pale hair, clutching two children close to her breast. Were they twins? No, that didn't matter right now. Poor thing looked scared out of her mind, and the kids with her. What are you doing? Hiding. She tucked her chin into her chest, refusing to look at him. He sighed softly. I can see that, but why are you hiding in the first place? An awful feeling gnawed at his gut. Could it be him? Was she afraid of him after all? They wanted to kill the boy. She looked at him with wide, fearful, thankful eyes. You stopped them. Thank you. Something about her face and eyes reminded him of Rhaenyra. Who the heck are you? Helena. The girl smiled for him suddenly, softly, sadly, sweetly. Thank you for letting me have this, even if you aren't real. Confusion bloomed within him. Had he done something he shouldn't have? What do you mean I'm not real? I'm right here. He tried to touch her shoulder only for her to vanish in a swirl of mist, and with her absence the world rippled around him like oil through water. In an instant, he found himself thrust from the bedroom into another room altogether. He barely had time to take in his surroundings before a young man with pale hair bulled past him, shouldered him aside, drew his sword, and drove his blade into a table with a blue-curdling howl. Again and again he struck down upon it and the monument within, each swing more savage than the last. He slashed down with an unyielding, fiery rage, howling imprecations at the world. Villains and traitors! They tried to kill my son. I declare war. Naruto found himself edging backward. An awful wrongness gnawed at him. He shouldn't be here. The man must have sensed him somehow, because he pivoted to face him. Belatedly, he glimpsed the crown upon his head, but the one wearing it was a stranger to him. This wasn't Viserys. He didn't recognize them, had never seen them before in his life. Ely. Something was wrong here. Something was very wrong indeed. Something was terribly, horribly wrong. There you are! Without warning, the young king dropped their blade and moved to meet him with a wide grin. I understand you're the one who saved my son. He clapped him on the shoulder and drew him into a brisk embrace. I'll see you richly rewarded for this. Before he could even think to speak, the scene shifted again, leaving him reeling but for an altogether different reason. On and on it went, a storm of sound he could scarcely sense, a barrage of blows against his psyche. Dragons danced high in the sky. Fire fell from the heavens. A voice rumbled to him. Hungry. He whirled, and for a moment he could have sworn he glimpsed the cannibal's draconic visage in the dream smoke, there and gone again when he raised a fist at him. Cut it out! As though spurred by those very words, the dream wavered and the scene settled around him. He found himself gazing upon a young woman, her shoulders hunched, face stricken with tears and soot, leaning over a table in a room of cold stone, shoulders bowed, and she considered the map carved within. She wouldn't look at him, didn't even seem to notice him, really. He waved a hand before her face. Nothing. Calling out to her drew no change either. Her attention remained fixed on the table, a rather familiar table at that. Wait, he knew this place. Dragonstone? And against all odds, he realized he knew this woman. He stepped closer, noting her pale blonde hair and familiar eyes, the little quirk in her lips when she scowled, the smile that made his heart flutter. He took a chance and touched the dream woman's face. Rhaenyra? His words were the catalyst to reactivate her. She jolted, looked up, saw him, and backpedaled with a start. You can't be here. You're dead. You died at Harrenhal. Naruto felt a frown tug at the corner of his mouth. I've never been to Harrenhal. The dream Rhaenyra slapped him, and he recoiled, surprised to feel pain. Liar, she railed at him. You died. I saw your body. Stop that! He caught her fist when she tried to strike him again. His temper roiled and he stomped down on it. This wasn't real. It was a dream, wasn't it? An ominous rumble above caused his head to snap up. Not a heartbeat later, a great golden dragon tore through the ceiling above, not Syrax, before he could think to respond, nearly bringing everything down upon them. It saw Rhaenyra and snapped at her, ready to devour her whole. He reacted accordingly, caught the beast by its open jaws and wrenched, snapping its neck. The beast turned to so much mist and smoke, vanishing before its great bulk could fall and crush them both. No more dreams. He stomped down on the haze, to no avail. I want to wake up. You're too late, Naruto. A hand touched the back of his head, and with it the cruelest of cold chills shot up his spine. Always too late. He looked back, only to find Rhaenyra absent. Something cold touched his nose. He looked up, baffled. Snow? Why was it snowing? When had it grown so dark? The stone room of Dragonstone had fallen away, leaving in the empty night. Squinting into the shadow, he found himself unalone. Blue eyes glared balefully at him from the gloom. 1, 3, 5, their number grew as he looked on, numbering in the dozens, then 100,000s now, each of them staring at him. Their numbers continued to swell as he looked until they were all he could see. So many eyes. Blue, cold, dead eyes. An old, rumbling voice filled his ears. Winter is coming. Enough! Exasperated, he spread his arms wide, flooding his body with golden chakra to burn the darkness away. Something screamed in the dark and recoiled from the light. In that moment, he glimpsed the face of those who had been staring at him, and dearly wished he hadn't. He saw the dead, and the dead saw him. Before he had a chance to process the horror of it all, he heard a sound akin to that of broken glass, and with it, the dream shattered, taking the horde of azure orbs with them. He awoke with a shout on his lips, staring at the ceiling, a snarl etched into his face. Yet despite that, there was no panic in him, only confusion. The latter melted into determination to make sense of it all. What was that? What was what? This time, Kurama's voice answered him. I've been trying to wake you for the last hour. You were dead to the world for a while there. Rising from his bed, he dragged a hand across his face to wake himself up. You didn't see that? I just told you no. What happened? You were having a fit. A dream. Or a nightmare. Maybe a vision? It felt so real. Try as he might, He couldn't shake the lingering chill from his bones. It clung to him even now, lingering despite his best efforts. What had he seen? What did it mean? For a while it felt like he'd been somewhere else. Not here, not in this time. The past? The future? Somewhere else entirely? He couldn't be sure. But at the end, no, dwelling on it would only hurt him. Well, time to face the day. Sitting here shivering wouldn't change anything. The best way to banish one's fears was to face them head on. He couldn't keep hesitating at such things. Best to kill the boy. Yes, kill the boy and let the man be born. Kurama rumbled his approval. Good. Do what you two best. Tackle one problem at a time. So he did just that. Drawing himself up, he tugged on his trousers, threw on a linen shirt, and washed his face for good measure. The cool water brought him some small semblance of comfort, if only just, and allowed him to marshal the tattered threads of his thoughts once more. Winter is coming. Those were the Stark words, weren't they? Maybe he should ask about them. It couldn't hurt. The door creaked open, commanding his attention. Morning, Rhaenyra poked her head through, beaming at him. Father wants you present at the next meeting of the small council and… what's wrong? She saw his stricken expression and paused, taken aback not just by his silence, but by the way he suddenly stilled at the sight of her. You look like you've seen a ghost. Maybe he had. When he didn't answer, the princess took matters into her own hands as she often did these days. She entered the room quickly, not even bothering to lock the door behind her, and flung herself at him. He caught her by the waist to hold her close on sheer instinct. The moment he did, she threw her arms around his neck and drew his face down to hers. Her lips were fire against his own, a searing heat to chase away the chill, and he drank her in deeply as his mouth melded with hers. She made a pleased noise and tilted her head for a better angle, fingernails digging into him, but he wasn't satisfied with just that. Instead, he gathered her into his arms and held her close. Rhaenyra squirmed, startled by the sudden embrace as much as the intensity of it. Naruto? His arms trembled. Can I just hold you like this? For a little while, she hummed into his chest. All right. A moment passed before he felt her fingers fiddle with the laces of his shirt, drawing a sigh from him. Rhaenyra, she giggled even as his hands hiked up her dress in response. You're just as bad. He grabbed her by the rear, drawing her closer. Someone might hear us. She kissed him, gasping as a hand delved lower and traced her inner thigh. Then we'll be quiet. That was rather tempting, in all honesty. He'd happily welcome a distraction after that god's awful nightmare. And he did want her, so very badly. What was the harm? Kiss me, Rhaenyra crooned, dragging her lips across his neck, lingering at his chin. You know you want to. Naruto yielded with a growl and pinned her to the nearest wall. She wrapped a leg around his waist, then another, holding on for dear life as he railed her. Within a matter of moments they were lost in one another and the blessed bliss of coitus. Neither noticed the door she'd left unlocked, hanging ajar, open half a crack, nor the faint shuffle of footsteps as their voyeur slunk away. Chapter 13. I do so love being underestimated. Tilda, I hereby announce Lord Corlys Velaryon was most cross the next meeting of the small council. Downright livid even. Spectacularly so. In hindsight, Naruto had known the sea snake would be cross, and he was, but not at all for the reasons he thought. You would focus on this foolish frippery over the stepstones. The man swept a hand across the table, scattering his wine goblet with a harsh clatter. While we sit here and twiddle our thumbs over pointless matters, the crab feeder pillages and sack our fleets with impunity. We must tear them out of their den, root and stem. To his credit, Viserys took the rebuke with good grace. And how do you propose we do that? Send your fleets! His fist slammed down, rattling the table. Your armies! Show the stepstones what it means to feel fear. Otto Hightower heaved a sigh. We cannot simply attack without sparking a war. Then let there be war. Naruto leaned back in his chair, listening with half an ear as everything dissolved into an argument once more. It was all more of the same, just as always. More politicking, endless dickering about, empty promises with nothing meaningful accomplished. Why did Viserys want him and Rhaenyra here today, anyway? It was just so dull and difficult to keep his eyes open. Idly, he hearkened back to an earlier memory with the man himself. You may know these lords, but you do not know what makes them as they are. It is of vital importance that you do. You will need to know them in the days to come. He still couldn't fathom why the king wanted him to know these people, but for his sake, and that of Kurama nudging him, he would put his best foot forward. Forcing himself to focus, he allowed his gaze to settle upon the instigator of it all. Lord Valerian is an ambitious man, one who does not take slights lightly as master of ships. He has built and captained the most famous ship in the R fleet, also named the Sea Snake, for which has taken the same moniker. As its captain, he has sailed on 9 voyages across the known world, gathering wealth and artifacts. There is no more capable sailor this side of Westeros, but like any sailor, his temper often runs hot. That much was clear. The man looked like he wanted to slug Otto right about now. He was half tempted to let him, stifling that treacherous impulse. He looked towards the rest of the council, idly reviewing what he'd both been taught and told of them. By contrast, Lord Lionel Strong is more predisposed toward my house. As Master of Laws, he acts not with haste, but ever for what believes to best of the realm. A more impartial and judicious man you shall not find. You would do well to make him your ally. The stoic man certainly seemed trustworthy enough. He didn't sense an iota of ill intent from him. Hands clasped atop the table, he nodded his way once. On he went, moving to the next lord down the table. Then we have Lord Lyman Beesbury, old and a bit doddering perhaps, but a man of principle, and one who keeps his oaths. There is no man better suited to be master of coin. He will back you if you but treat him with the respect he is due. Alas, that was where his line of potential allies ended. When he glanced askance, he found Maester Mellos scowling at him. Mustn't smirk at him. Don't smirk at him. Whatever you do, do not smirk at him. Damn it! He couldn't help himself. He just didn't like this guy. Viserys' voice came back to him again from memory, slightly chagrined. As for Grand Maester Mellos, well, I suppose the best way to describe him is a traditionalist, a staunch defender of the current system. He is loath toward all things magic and not terribly fond of dragons. Nevertheless, while his skills are second to none among his peers and we cannot afford to alienate him at this time, you must be wary of him. The man's never quite forgiven you for saving Aemma and Visenya where he could not. You humiliated him and his order on that dark day. He bears a grudge. Keep an eye on him. He would certainly do so. This man held a burning dislike of him. He could sense that much. And so he wouldn't trust him. And of course, you know Otto. He did, and he wished he didn't. From the moment he'd met him, he knew he and the Hand of the King would never get along. Whatever he might think of Alicent, whatever he may or may not feel for her, he and her old man were simply too different, and those differences irreconcilable to ever coexist with one another. The man was even now shaking his fist at Lord Velaryon over some slight or another, saying he must act for the good of the realm or some such. The good of the realm, he said. Pah! Good for him and his house, more like. He didn't give a flying fig for anyone but himself. Naruto knew his kind. He had his number, and he'd not forget it. Otto was the most dangerous of them all. Not out of any grand incompetence or willful malevolence, mind you, but because he genuinely believed that what was best for the Hightowers, and by definition him, was also the best for the realm. He wore duty like a cloak, hiding the knife within the shadows of his promises, ready to strike. At what, he knew not, but strike he would. Orochimaru could have learned a thing or two from this slimy snake. He'd take him down the first chance he got. Really, it would be safer just to kill him outright, but Alicent would never forgive him for it. Times like these made him wish he wasn't so damn nice. One last piece of advice. I can command the court in a pinch, but it will be up to you and Rhaenyra to convince them. Alicent, too, if you intend on wrangling her into this grand scheme of yours. That is a task I cannot help you with, though I wish it were otherwise. Many a noble dislikes you for your proximity to me and my family. More still will hate you simply because they can. Others doubly so because they believe there is opportunity to be made in tearing down a newcomer to the court. Do not concern yourself with them. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer, and you will win the day. Wait, he'd asked at the time, why would we need to convince them? Viserys had merely smiled in that fatherly way of his, leaving him grasping in the dark. The game was afoot once again. The problem being that he didn't know what today's game was. Rhaenyra's hand touched his leg beneath the table suddenly, breaking his train of thought and jolting him back to reality. More so when her palm settled upon his thigh. His gaze strayed to hers, and though she didn't turn her head, her gaze slid his way, and he caught the faintest hint of a smile on her lips from where she sat beside him. He flicked a baffled glance her way. What she was up to? She scooted herself closer to him ever so subtly. He shifted imperceptibly as well, angling close. Kurama coughed in his head and withdrew with a bemused chuckle. I'll just leave the two of you alone then, shall I? Naruto laid a palm on Rhaenyra's, and she squeezed his hand, granting him comfort as the lords droned on and on. Two could play that game. Her fingers danced over his before interlocking over his own. He gave her a quick squeeze, taking some small comfort in a brief moment of shared solidarity. And then she surprised him, as she so often did these days. Still holding his hand, the princess guided his fingers deftly between her legs and settled them there. His eyes bulged. He experienced a fleeting flicker of confusion before he realized what she intended. Wicked woman. Did she really want to do that here? With all these people about? Had she gone mad? Rhaenyra bumped him with her hip, prodding him on. Greedy girl. He'd never been one to back down from a challenge. Now, he wasn't hardly about to bend her over the table and rail her with everyone here. But he wasn't without his means. Instead, he shifted his fingers and pressed against her, tracing slow, small circles against her inner thigh through her dress. Her eyes widened, but he didn't give her the chance to protest. Tempting her, teasing her, tormenting her, he traced intricate lines against her until she was squirming within her seat, brought her to the brink, then drew his hand away. Rhaenyra absolutely hissed under her breath. Her glare promised retribution. He smirked softly. Worth! Ahem. Naruto looked up, momentarily nonplussed to find Viserys watching him with a bemused smile. The other lords of the small council, decidedly less so. Sorry, he feigned a wince. I've got a bit of a headache. What was the question? I asked if you were opposed to the measure. The king said. Out the corner of his eye, he saw Rhaenyra grant him the most subtle of nods. Likewise, he felt Lord Corlys watching him intently. Didn't take a genius to see what they were chatting about. I don't see why not. He chose his words carefully. Maybe send a dragon or two, just to be certain. Otto and Maester Mellows gave him a black look, but he wasn't blind to the approving looks from Lord Beesbury and Lionel. No love lost with the former, but it appeared he'd scored some points with the latter. You see? The Master of Ships grinned and shouted in triumph as he thumped the table with his fist. The boy speaks sense. Surely the sight of your grace on Vermithor would give those raiders pause. Perhaps even Demon on Caraxes once he's recovered. A spike of sullen discontent from Otto, directed toward both nearly, had Naruto bursting to his feet. I knew you had something to do with that. Calm down. If you attack him here, you'll make yourself the villain. But it's him. Damn it, I know it was him. We shall attend to the details on the morrow. Viserys temporized, with a raised hand, before he could leap over the table and throttle Alicent's father. Lords of the small council, I am your king, am I not? Rhaenyra's hand seized his again beneath the table for an entirely different Rion. He knew that tone. What was Rhaenyra's father up to now? You are, Otto allowed. And you are sworn to serve me, are you not? And the realm, your grace, Lord Lionel reminded him gently. Viserys smiled savagely, all teeth. Well said, my lord. Have I not been a fair and just ruler to this realm? Lord Beesbury coughed once, then took a long draught of his wine. Indeed you have. With that, Viserys let the other shoe drop, which is precisely why it brings me great joy to usher in further peace and security to this realm with this, my latest and perhaps greatest proclamation. He rose from his seat to tower over them all. I hereby announce the betrothal of my daughter, Rhaenyra. His beloved sucked in a sharp breath as her father finished. Oh shit, surely he wasn't going to. He was gonna. To Lord Naruto. Wait just a bloody minute! Naruto had time enough to blink. Lord? And the small council absolutely erupted. Chapter 14, and now it begins. No, now it ends. Does it? Tilda, Gone Crabbing, Part 1. Your Grace? This will never stand. There is no pretense for this. The boy cannot become a lord. Have you taken leave of your senses? Rhaenyra revelled in the chaos that followed, basked in it really. The shouts, the screams, the snarls, every bit of it. Oh yes. All hells broke loose, and they were at the very eye of the storm of it all. There was a certain dark delight to be had in being the centre of attention. She'd rather enjoyed it ever since she was small, and she enjoyed it now, watching these so-called lords were tearing themselves apart over her and Naruto's engagement. Demon would have laughed himself hoarse had he been here. She settled for a smile in his place and resolved to tell him everything that transpired here. It would be glorious. Still, a lord? My, but that had set the fox amongst the chickens. Father had not discussed this with her in advance, though she was hardly adverse to his choice. Where was Naruto to go? What lands would he take? They could hardly give him Dragonstone now, amusing as it might be, but it still ought to be somewhere close, unless… Yes, of course. The Stepstones! Clever of him. If they were to be cleared of pirates and slavers, as Naruto could undoubtedly do, then resettled with good folk, they'd have a bastion against further invaders, to say nothing of the upswing in trade. He would need troops to command, of course, and Father was mentioning something to that effect, but how to broach it? Blast it, but Sir Kristen was trying to catch her eye. She tacitly averted her gaze and refused to look his way. Honestly, that man. Perhaps elevating someone like him to the Kingsguard had been a mistake in hindsight. Too late to take it back now, though, she supposed. It wasn't as though he'd done anything wrong, per se, nor had he taken any actions that might see him stripped of the white cloak. Yet. Still, should he dare step out of bounds or cause trouble over this, she would make him pay for it, with fire and blood, if need be. For his part, Naruto weathered their criticism with an unusual stoicism, leaving her to wonder if he was quite all right. His face was worryingly blank. She squeezed his hand beneath the table, but he didn't respond. His hand fingers didn't even twitch against hers, and a secondary squeeze accomplished nothing. Oh dear. Father might have broken him with that grand announcement. She nudged his thigh with hers, and when that didn't evoke a reaction, she stomped on his pinky toe. That got his attention. 0.0. Naruto jolted back to himself with a start. Lord. He was a lord. Why was he a lord? He couldn't make sense of it all. Also, marriage. Actual marriage. Him and Rhaenyra. By the sage, it felt like he was going to pass out. And worse, Kurama was laughing at him. What was he to do about this? Marriage sounded kinda nice, but a lord? Him? He didn't know the first thing about being a lord. Rhaenyra kicked him again under the table, and he was grateful for it, because that outburst, coupled with the brief burst of pain, centered him and helped him to focus on the argument at hand. He'd hardly expected the small council to sing his praises, but this level of opposition was more than a little annoying, honestly. He noted those who didn't protest, of course. Lord Beesbury and Lord Lionel looked surprised, startled even, but though their looks were hawkish, they did not raise their voices as the rest did. Not so the others. Melos and Otto were against it from the start, judging by the mulish looks on their faces, to say nothing of Corliss. And he didn't miss the sudden tension from Kristen Cole standing guard near the doors either. Bloody Kingsguard was staring glaringly at him and Rhaenyra like a scalded cat. Velaryon, Hightower, Melos, and Cole. He'd remember those four. Otto took a deep breath and exhaled. Your Grace, there is little precedent for this. Actually, there is, Rhaenyra piped up with a smug smile. In the past, those who have done good service to the realm have been elevated beyond their station before, to knighthood. The hand of the king snapped back with a heated glare. This boy has no lands, no forces, none to serve him. Viserys took his remarks in stride. We shall address that in due time. Lord Velaryon tried to rally. The Stepstones are vastly more important. Naruto sensed weakness and pounced. They are important. All eyes turned to him. Viserys smiled proudly. Do continue. Well, shit. He'd done it now. In for a penny. In for a pound, as they say. Why did he get the feeling the old kind had planned this? Panicking for a moment, he hearkened back to one of the many lessons about the Stepstones that Viserys had drilled into him. It wasn't just House Velaryon suffering from these raids, if he recalled correctly. Aha, that was it. He remembered. Fine, they wanted to play games, so could he. Silver Tongue, don't fail me now. Steepling his fingers, he straightened his back, steeled his face, and spoke deliberately. The Manderleys and even House Redwine are also being affected by this blockade, you know. Lord Corliss paused at that, perhaps startled by such knowledge. So they are. The king's grin grew, prodding him on. Had he really planned this far ahead? Surely not, right? Right? My point is this. This matter isn't solely a problem for House Velaryon alone. It's an issue affects the entire realm. When no one on the small council dared to object, he dug his heels in and aimed for the weak amongst them once again. If I liberate your precious stepstones from this so-called crab feeder, will you support me then? By all accounts, those islands were teeming with pirates and slavers. Scum. The lowest of the low. No one who would be missed, which meant he needn't feel any guilt for sending them to a watery grave. A ripple passed over the council. Absurd. Preposterous? Otto scoffed. You'd need an army. He sneered at Alicenta's father. I am an army, my lord. Such arrogance. Doddering old men should know when to hold their tongues. Naruto's head whipped around with an audible creak. He hadn't been the one to say that. Otto sensed the shift before it happened and looked across him. Have a care for your tongue, princess. I shall not. Rhaenyra burst to her feet with a snarl, teeth bared in anger. You never liked him from the first. None of you have. Her baleful gaze roamed across the small council, singling them all out one after another in turn. And for what? Because he doesn't come from a famed and storied house like the rest of you. I have half a mind to— Enough! Viserys thundered, his voice cutting through the argument like a lightning bolt, his gaze raking over the small council like dragon's fire. I came here today to give you glad tidings, not to be suffocated by all this fucking politicking. My decision is final, and I will not have you disparage our guest. Naruto blew out a sigh. They didn't believe in him, didn't trust him, wanted him gone. After all, he had no lands, no wealth, no titles. His sole claim to fame were his abilities. That suited him just fine. He'd show them his power and they would learn. Perhaps that was a sign just how much these Targaryens, or perhaps just Rhaenyra and Daemon, had rubbed off on him. I love being underestimated. Look, I meant what I said. He raised his voice anew before another argument could brew. If you're that worried about the stepstones, send me. I'll have them cleaned out in a year. Probably less. Won't be hard. A lone shrug of his left shoulder added weight to the words as the lords looked amongst themselves. I can even keep you and Emma safe at the same time. For his part, Viserys quirked a bemused brow. You are skilled, but even you cannot be in two places at once. Naruto smiled as he rose from his chair. It was a smile that would terrifying their enemies. About that, smoke bloomed once, twice, thrice. 3 shadow clones waved back. Viserys blinked. He blinked hard. I stand corrected. Meister Melos fell out his chair, crawled backward like a drunken crab, and made a sign to ward off evil. Witchcraft! Wizardy! We must cast him out at once. Go ahead. Try. And no, he crossed both arms before his chest and his doppelgangers mimicked him. I dare you. None dared make the attempt, because in that instant, he allowed his true feelings to break free and flooded the room with killing intent. It was only for a moment, a sliver of a second really, but it was enough. No, more than enough. The room fell into shocked silence. He tilted his head and happily shattered it, speaking in unison with his clones. That's what I thought. The maester whimpered anew. The small council, meanwhile, somehow proved even less enthused. Otto Hightower looked like he'd bitten into a lemon. Corlys had reared back up out of his seat, while Lords Lionel and Beesbury seemed to be one breath short of suffering and an anxiety attack. Those two, at least, he felt bad for. Not so the rest. Lord Lionel dared to lean over and poke one of his clones in the side. Said clone smacked his hand away, eliciting a shout from the Master of Laws. Lord Beesbury nearly fainted dead away. Gods! They're real! Naruto scoffed. Why would they be anything less? Kurama coughed in his ear, interrupting his amusement. On your left, she's staring. With that, he became suddenly and keenly aware of Rhaenyra watching him with very wide eyes. Sage knew what was going on in that head of hers, but she almost looked, dare he say, excited. Why would she be? For a moment he thought she might jump him here and now. She rubbed her thighs together and bit her lip. A surge of dark heat shot through him as he remembered just what those lips could do. Shelving that thought for later, he turned back to face the king. Satisfied? Quite. Viserys steepled his fingers, ruefully impressed with him. If you aim to conquer the Stepstones, then it is only fitting that become Lord of the Stepstones. And perhaps, he amended with a glance at his grinning shadows, a new Master of Whispers. Rhaenyra clapped her hands. I'm sure he'd be delighted to be a part of the small council. Otto nearly had a conniption then and there. Kurama whistled. Clever girl. Naruto very nearly did a double-take himself. Clever bastard. Had this been his plan all along? He wouldn't deny that it was for his benefit, but in the same vein, he wasn't terribly happy about it either. But he could hardly protest now, could he? Doing so would present a divided front where they must be united. So be it. He would show them. He'd show them all. He didn't just do well, he excelled. R.0.0.0. Say, Mama dearest. Visenya reached for her with pudgy little arms, cooing softly. Emma crooned and pulled her into her arms. Close, she hummed at her. Try again. Her youngest only yawned, prompting a sigh from the Queen. I suppose we shall have to try this some other time. It was a simple matter to lay her dear one down for a nap. Simpler still to tuck her into her crib and watch her fall asleep. She'd always been a sound sleeper, and today was no exception. All the while her dragon remained close, the little hatching wise and wary but also loyal, even young as it was. Emma took some small paternal pride in watching the wee beast. Many a dragon's scales were known to shift as they grew older, but this one may well remain black as night. She could even see the beginnings of horns curling on either side of its head. It needed a name, and no one seemed to be in any hurry to give it one. Visenya certainly wouldn't any time soon. But what to name it? How does Gransex sound? The dragonling laid his head down at the foot of the cradle with a huff. No, that wouldn't do. Lansax? The little beastie side-eyed her, annoyed. Bale, she tried, throwing out a last desperate name to see what would stick. The dragonling perked up. Like that, do you? She crouched down beside it and held out her hand. Then Bale you shall be. Bale the Dread. Does that suit you, small one? A fine name. A strong name. Not quite as regal and grand as Vagar and Vermithor or Silverwing, nor Cyrax or Old Caraxes and Melees, but it still held a certain gravitas, she felt. And speaking of which, striding to a nearby table, Emma plucked a tiny cube of meat from the silver dish therein. Pivoting, held out the little speck of meat for the beast. Come here, little one. It didn't budge from the foot of Visenya's cradle. Stubborn, she tutted softly. You haven't eaten all day. Its tail twitched. You can't keep her safe if you starve yourself, she reproached. You must keep up your strength. That did the trick. It scuttled closer. Good boy. She held out her arm, the invitation clear. Baby Bale made angry Bale noises as he clambered up her limb. Oh, yes. She laughed, setting him down upon the table. You're quite fearsome. You'll be a right terror someday. That seemed to placate the prideful little thing. It scooted closer still and sniffed the meat in her hands. Help yourself. Hunger won out, but it didn't seem interested in the raw meat. Now seemed as good a time as any to try and teach it, she supposed. Poor baby, she cooed at it in High Valyrian. Go on, cook it yourself if you prefer it well done. Bale hesitated. Use your breath, she prodded at him. Dracaries. The little lizard eyed the tiny cube of meat, inhaled, and sneezed out a ring of smoke. Emma couldn't quite hide the giggle that followed, though it drew a growl from her daughter's dragon. What marvellous creatures they were. Her own bond with Silverwing was still young, tentative even. But here and now she could see why those of her bloodline were so inherently intertwined with the worms. Better. She smiled and spoke the words slowly. Dra tilde ka tilde res. Baby Bale glared at the meat, inhaled deeply, and... Success at last! He'd breathed fire just now. Just a tiny little flame, but a fine start. His meat cooked, he tucked into his meal with relish. Emma ran a finger over his horns. You'll look after Visenya, won't you? Bale finished eating, looked at her, and chirruped once. The Queen beamed. Good boy. 0.0. Marriage? Alicent nearly collapsed when she was given the news. If there hadn't been a bed behind her, she might have fainted on the spot. Even now it looked like she just might. Her eyes were wide, her expression glassy, complexion positively pallid. Rhaenyra couldn't quite suppress a twinge of pity at that. She'd broken the news to her in person, hoping to soften the blow. Instead, she'd inadvertently made things worse. So much worse. I did think Father would be so bold as to announce our betrothal before the small council. Alicent made an agonized noise and rounded on her. Then you didn't sanction this? I did not, she said. But you do not deny that you wished for it. She didn't fail to notice the accusing note in her words, the bitter bite in her voice. Her temper twisted at the hurtful insinuation, but she held herself back. She didn't mean that. She mustn't. Alicent would never try to hurt her, not deliberately. Her dear friend didn't deserve such pain. But she did deserve a choice. It is time to choose. Alicent bristle. Choose what? Either you're with us or against us, she whined. Can I not hold some middle ground between the two? Rhaenyra lifted her chin and stared her down. You cannot. When she dithered, she pressed the issue. He would welcome you, you know. You've but to talk with him. Truly talk to him, without a minder looming over your shoulder or someone watching your every move. Alicent, agonized over it, looked away. Your father would set the realm afire in his haste to see you happy. Good. She found herself rather fond of fire. I am a Targaryen, not merely some broodmare. She clicked her tongue when Alicent instinctively made to protest. Nor are you. She took her hands in hers, stroking her pals with both thumbs to hold her close. You are meant for more than this, more than your father's machinations. A shiver shot through Alicent, and she could tell it was not at all an unpleasant one. Here, let me show you. Rhaenyra took a gamble then and leaned in. Closer still when her dear friend didn't push her away. She paused now, just shy of her face, nose brushing hers, giving her a chance to back away. Then she kissed Alicent. Her mouth found hers, softly at first, gently, then with need, kissing her fully, deeply, as she hadn't back in Dragonstone. Alicent melted into her with a whimper, perhaps for mercy, perhaps for more, she didn't know. Whatever the case, she didn't relent. On the contrary, she took hold of her right hand, pushed her down to the bed, and pinned her there as her left slid between her legs. Tempting her, teasing her, lips lingering along her cheek, dragging across her neck with all the fiery fierceness of her blood, until the object of her affections mewled and whined beneath her. She set the coup de grace, whispering into her ear. Think how glorious it would feel if he were here too. Alicent withdrew with a whine, eyes wide, cheeks flushed. That's not fair. Life isn't fair. She cupped her cheek. You must make it so. It was tempting to press the matter, to pursue, to devour her whole as a true dragon would. Instead, she let her rise, sit up, fuss with her hair and dress until it resembled some small semblance of normalcy. Silly girl. This would never be normal now. Not between them. I need to think on this. You've been thinking, she declared. You're out of time. Her dear friend wilted with those words. Naruto leaves for the Stepstones tomorrow. I intend to go with him. I would have your answer by then. You what? Alicent stared at her. You've been with him again, haven't you? Her smile betrayed nothing, but her eyes must have given something away because she yelped. Rhaenyra, what if you get with child? I regret nothing. And neither would if you were to join us. She jolted upright and whirled away, running her hands through her hair. You would make a whore of me, bearing his bastard children. I would not. Rhaenyra followed after her. Targaryens have married two before. Yes, but never a woman with a woman, to say nothing of this debauchery. The pretty pink tinge in her cheeks said otherwise. Father would never allow it. She tilted her head. I am not asking him. I'm asking you. Do you not wish to be free of his cold grip at long last? I do, but not like this. If I do this, I shackle my fate to yours and his. Yours would be mine, win or lose. Silly girl. That's what love means. But Alicent was raving at her now, wild with her own fears. You would turn the faith against the realm, or the realm against the faith. Fuck the faith, Rhaenyra rolled her eyes when Alicent dithered. You Hightowers and your bloody seven-pointed star. Why should we care what a bunch of Septons think? Alicent grabbed her wrist. Listen to yourself. The crown and the faith are the two pillars that uphold the realm. If one were to turn against the other, we would have war. Was that her fear? She took hold of the hand grasping her arm, threaded it into her palm and kissed their intertwined fingers. Then let us have war. Should the faith turn against us, we will finish that Myga started. With fire and blood. Alicent gasped. No. Yes. Rhaenyra, you must listen. It is you who should listen. She snarled when Alicent tried to shush her. Her blood was up now, the dragon within her roused in all its fury, her bright eyes alight with equal parts exasperation and anger. My path is set. I have made my choice, and I will not be swayed from it. She would not let that awful dream come to pass, not when she could finally be free, with father's blessing no less. What will yours be? Alicent bit her lip and looked away. Here at last she took pity on her. It is not too late. She gestured to the sealed door and the small table set beside. Ring the bell once you've made your decision. A servant will fetch me at once. Until then, she took a key from her belt and swung open the door. Alicent glimpsed the white cloaks beyond it and realized what she intended. You're locking me in here? Sir Arik and Sir Eric will watch over you until such a time as you have given me said answer. Her dear friend bridled. Am I to be a prisoner then? I'm doing this for your own good. I aim to keep you safe. From whom? Rhaenyra growled at her. From your father. Alicent recoiled as if she'd been struck. What? Her face crumpled, but to her credit, she recovered quickly and schooled her face back bin an expressionless mask once more. What has he done? Tried to have my mother poisoned for one, her friend warbled. Have you any proof of this? I know what I have seen and sensed. Naruto has the matter well in hand. I shall see you on the morrow. She left her with that, departing in a swirl of silk. Alicent lunged after her with a cry, but the Kingsguard stood resolute in their duty, closing and locking the door in her face. Rhaenyra hardened her heart to her cries. Gods, but she wanted to go back and comfort her, but no. Alicent was a tempting prize, but she knew she mustn't push her too hard, too far, too fast. If war was coming, and she believed it was, she would need to step up her training. She hoped she would see sense. 0.0. You're dying, demon. He opened his eyes and sat up with a cough. Grimacing, he glared at his hand and the blood there. Bugger. He was of the blood of the dragon. Whatever this foul affliction, no matter the malady, he would not die quietly. Caraxes trilled in the distance, missing him, calling to him, eager for action. He looked to the window and dragged himself upright. Time to fly. 0.0. Sir Criston cornered her soon thereafter. Rhaenyra knew it was coming. From the moment she left Alicent's chamber, it was merely a matter of time. She'd like to say she happened upon him by chance, but she knew the ugly truth. He'd been following her for some time now, ever since she'd left Alicent's chamber. At the time, she hadn't thought him fool enough to confront her, that he wouldn't follow her into the gardens. Evidently she'd been wrong. Sir Criston Cole had become one of her few regrets in this life. He was handsome enough at a glance, she supposed, but those rakish good looks were somewhat tempered by his, what was it? His honour. Fastidiousness. Regardless, there was something off about him. She felt he could be trusted to protect those in his charge with all might, and yet, when the subject of Naruto was broached, he became increasingly recalcitrant as of late, if not downright irate. And now? Blast it all, he was going to make a meal of this, wasn't he? Princess. Whirling, she faced him in a swirl of silk. I wish to be alone, sir. He didn't budge, damn him. Is it true? Rhaenyra tilted her head and feigned ignorance, quietly hoping he would let it be and leave. Is what true? That you are to be married. True enough, and Alicent too, if she had her way. She would not leave her one and only friend cold and alone if she could help it. Oh yes, she would keep her nice and warm. Your Grace, please. This is folly. Her delightful little fantasy shattered, replaced by the reality of the boorish, boring man before her. You must reconsider. So they were doing this, then? Let none say she was a coward. I fail to see the folly here. The man adopted a mulish expression, but she refused to rise to the bait, and so he sputtered, incoherent. He's not even a lord. Not really. Or even a knight. What of it? Sir Criston averted his gaze with an aggrieved noise. Rhaenyra looked at him then, truly looked at him as she hadn't before. She noticed something then, a hint of longing she'd failed to see, not even dared to consider. A spark. She didn't much like what she saw. Oh dear. She took a swift step back, suddenly aware of just how alone she was with him. I cannot grant your desire, sir. Cole flinched and glanced away from her, ran a hand through his dark hair, then dragged it down his face. I know not what you mean. I desire nothing. Liar. But she chose not to speak the words, for both their sake. Just tell me this. Why him? Her face closed down. We will speak no more of this. Your Grace! You forget yourself, Sir Criston, she snapped at him. You are a knight of the Kingsguard. By your decree? Annoyed, she turned to leave. He made a wild grab for her shoulder. The second Rhaenyra felt his fingers touch her, something sparked in her. Out came her knife in a whirl of steel. Flesh parted. Blood spattered upon the cobblestones. She drew back with a hiss, brandishing her bloody blade with wild eyes and clenched teeth. Keep away from me! Tension hung between them. Thick and heavy, a firestorm ready to implode at the slightest provocation. She'd wounded him, not just with the blade, but deeper than that. She could see it in his eyes, the pain, the welling betrayal, the mistrust. She hadn't meant to hurt him, hadn't meant to lead on a man for whom she felt nothing whatsoever. None of this was her fault, and yet she could see the pain in Cole's face, deeper than the shallow slice she'd left upon his hand. She should tell father. Tell him this instant. Have the white cloak ripped from his back? Cole regarded her sadly, cradling his bloody palm, and though he made no move to approach, she could hear the agony in his voice when he spoke. Please, I must know. Why him? What do you see in him? A loaded question if ever she had heard one. In the end, she forced herself to settle for the simplest, most honest answer she could give. Perhaps that would finally satisfy him. Damn her bleeding heart. Hope! She cleaned her knife with a cloth and stowed it before throwing said cloth at him. See to your wound and do not touch me again, lest I rip that white cloak from your shoulders myself. Cole tensed. I serve the king, by my decree. She threw the words back in his face. Good day, sir. Kristen winced and she took the chance to flee. For once he did not follow in her wake. Wherever Naruto had fled, she prayed he was having a better time of things than her right now. 0.0. Syrax trilled softly. Easy now. Naruto approached the golden dragon with soft and steady steps. Please don't try to set me on fire again. I rather like these clothes. The young dragon seemed to consider that for a brief moment. Her nostrils flared and expelled a plume of black soot. No, he thrust a finger at her. Don't even think about it. Not that she could hurt him, of course, but he would be rather cross if she ruined his outfit. It was difficult enough to find something he liked. The last thing he needed was another day of endless fittings. Blasted silk. It had taken no small amount of cajoling on his part to get Rhaenyra's dragon all the way out here to the beach in the first place. Now that she finally had a chance to experience some hard-won fresh air, he'd hoped her temper would prove more malleable. He liked to think that he'd succeeded on that front, if only because Syrax hadn't tried to bite him for the better part of an hour now. But even her temper had limits, and he could sense that the young dragon was nearing the limits of hers. Here, he plucked a fresh fish from the bag at his waist. If I feed you another one of these, will you behave? Syrax tilted her head and eyed him most intently. You want the whole thing, don't you? Rhaenyra's dragon trilled. Oh, fine. He tossed it her way and let it spill out at her feet. Have your feast? She was more than happy to do just that, so much so that she even deigned to let him stroke her horns, the feisty girl. In hindsight, he wasn't quite sure why he'd brought her all the way out here. Perhaps he was feeling nostalgic, thinking back to simpler times. Or maybe he was just feeling homesick. Hard to tell. Something cried out above them. He looked up, confused for a moment, until he saw the shadow. Well, well, that was a big dragon. Smaller than Cannibal, but still big. And very red. The beast swept down towards them at speed, a falling star from on high, and belatedly he realized it wasn't Carax's. At the last second, the newcomer swept their wings out and landed with a ponderous thump, rattling the sands and his eardrums alike. It took one look at him, reared back and howled in his face. He stood his ground, mildly amused by the territorial display. Behind him, Syrax lowed fearfully and abandoned her fish feast, backing down in the face of the larger beast. Poor girl. This red menace made her look tiny by comparison. But it was nothing compared to Cannibal, and likewise, nothing he hadn't seen before. Clicking his tongue, he reached up to scratch the dragon's chin, and her scream cut off into a confused, albeit contented purr. He looked to the beast's back, searching for its rider. Are you done? Not quite. As he looked on, an armor-clad rider dismounted with ease, an older woman bearing pale hair, bright eyes, and a faintly bemused expression. He remembered seeing her once or twice around the castle. Wasn't she Rhaenyra's cousin or some such? He couldn't quite recall her name. It was right on the tip of his tongue. Kurama beat him to it. Rhaenys, the queen who never was. He whistled internally at the name and title alike. How do you remember that? The old fox preened. When you've lived as long as I have, you get an ear for names. She sauntered his way, her expression intent, and for some reason, though he couldn't quite say why, he felt strangely sad seeing her. He couldn't say why. They barely knew one another. She should have many years left of her. He hoped she lived them well. Of course, that also begged the question as to why she was here harassing him in the first place. The queen who never was granted him a grim smile. I understand congratulations are in order. He scowled. Word travels quickly, it seems. Said smile became a touch more bemused. My lord husband was quite vocal about it. A blonde brow rose in mild consternation. Sent you after me, did you? No, she replied. I thought I'd see the truth for myself. And what do you see? She considered him for a long moment. A boy who has become a man, it seems. She looked past him to her partner. The rumors are true, it seems. Should I thank you for that? He looked past her, still scratching her dragon's chin. And you must be Melis. Can I stop now? Or, the large dragon trilled once and all but shoved her snout into his chest, nearly bowling him right over. I'm guessing that's a no. He beamed, charmed. You're nicer than Carax's, at least. Careful, Rhaenys chided him. You might lose the hand. He winked her way with a laugh. I'd grow it back. That's not something to say in jest. He grinned. Who's joking? Clearly not you, it seems. She relented with a huff, but the fire banked in her gaze. I would have words with you about Rhaenyra. Something about her tone made him feel deeply protective of the princess. Out came the sarcasm in all its cutting teasing. But, my lady! He touched a hand to his chest, feigning concern. The two of us? Alone? People will talk. She crossed both arms before her armoured bosom and glared. Sarcasm is the lowest form of wit. Naruto blew out a sigh. All right, can't take a joke, sheesh. It would prove to be a riveting discussion. Chapter 15. Wars are won with words and swords alike. Tilda, Gone Crabbing, Part 2. Do you love her? Rhaenys was ruthless, he'd give her that much. From the very first question, she cut him to the quick. He couldn't even blame her for such a line of inquiry, not really. After all, Rhaenyra was her younger cousin. Whatever their differences might be, she was family. It was only natural that she would look out for her. Of course, all that was from a rational standpoint. Even then, he couldn't quite quell the rush of emotion that followed. Melis must have sensed it, because the red dragon bristled under his touch with a low grow. He gave her chin another hearty scratch and she settled down. Of course I love her. Oh yes. He couldn't keep himself from showing his teeth in the face of such a question. Do you really think I would be dealing with this, any of this? He flung out, an arm to King's Landing behind them and the Red Keep in all its glory. If I didn't care for her, I would have taken the first train out of here otherwise. Rhaenys blinked. What, pray tell, is a train? Right. He pinched the bridge of his nose to stifle a sigh. I keep forgetting you people don't have those. But my answer's the same. Yeah, I love her. He really truly did. Loved her as he never had any other. He knew that now, accepted it, and on some small level it terrified him. Sure, love was a strength, but it was also a weakness. When you loved someone, really, truly loved them, you risked losing them. He'd seen what that pain did to others, what it made them. The loss of love had created some of the greatest villains he'd ever faced. He'd been training Rhaenyra to prevent such a fate. Hopefully she could. But would you die for her? Rhaenys pressed. His eyes blazed gold as his temper briefly slipped its leash. Careful now. Melis grumbled under his hand, and, having had enough of their bickering, shook herself free and loped towards Serax. Naruto let her go, content to have the two dragons take wing and frolic in the skies. He never once took his eyes from Rhaenys, who, if anything, seemed to be watching even more intently now than before. What wild eyes you have, she mumbled under her breath. Your mother must have been very beautiful. Heat spiked through his face, but he refused to let her steer the subject to safer waters. Since we're playing 20 questions here, what do you think of Rhaenyra? I believe she loves you. Her response proved immediate, if exacting. And you love her? He lifted his chin to stare her down, glare for glare. You don't approve? She scoffed. My approval matters very little in the war to come. I would have it nevertheless, he said. Well spoken, aren't you? When I want to be. Something akin to approval flickered through the gaze of Rhaenys, even as his own dimmed back to blue. You do realize that girl may well be named the heir to the Iron Throne if her father has his way. If Daemon gave up his rights, which was highly unlikely, but stranger things had happened before. I'm aware. You have my thanks for that, by the way. What was she on about now? What are you thanking me for, exactly? For lighting a fire in the king. She tossed her head, idly flicking a strand of pale hair behind one ear. It's high time he showed that council of leeches what it means to face a true dragon. You're a shrewd one. The tiniest glimmer of pride in her eyes was his reward. I would not have lived this long if I weren't. Huh, feisty. In another life, and if she weren't happily married, he might have fallen for this proud, regal woman. Another tale for another time, perhaps. Shaking himself, he opted to leave her with a warning instead. Speaking of living, but you should mind your surroundings more, especially on Dragonback. Back at Dragonstone, the cannibal could have easily snapped Cyrax up in a single bite, had the opportunity presented itself. Melis was bigger and more experienced, to be sure, but he knew that Dread Dragon could easily take chunks out of her, and whomever might be riding her at the time. He had no desire to see this lively woman caught unawares as they had been, but he could hardly tell her that there was a giant dragon lurking just across the bay now. Could he? He'd cause a panic. A demure silver brow rose as she misunderstood him. Is that a threat? More a warning. He hedged, unwilling to elaborate. Very well, she relented with a sigh. I shall heed those words. You should. He flicked a gaze up to the sky, idly watching the dragons frolic and cavort in the heavens above. Melis may be big and strong, but there's always something bigger. Take it from someone who knows. Rhaenys was smart, bless her heart. This time, she got the message, took the hint within, and nodded once. Speaking from experience, are we? Hungry. Agony stabbed into his temples as the cannibal's voice plunged into his mind, stabbing like a rusty dagger. Lovely. Apparently the Titanic dragon wasn't just invading his dreams after their little flight. It was actively in his thoughts. He really ought to get that one a better name the next time they met. Assuming Cannibal was content to stay on Dragonstone, something told him he wouldn't be. Not for much longer. Out with you! Kurama snapped, driving his presence back in a rush of scalding chakra. It's crowded enough in here. I would look in on Demon before you leave, Rhaenys said suddenly, claiming his attention as was her wont. He's not been well. Alarm coursed through him and made his heart hitch. How? His brow furrowed. I healed him. He should be recovering. She stared at him intently. Then perhaps you should consider who is overseeing that man's meals. Otto again. Would that he could just throw him in a cell and be done with this. He dragged a hand down his face and took a breath to steady himself. I'll see to it. I leave for the Stepstones in the morning. We leave for the Stepstones, Rhaenys corrected him. He perked up. I beg your pardon? You're forgiven. The princess smirked at him indulgently, and for a moment he had a glimpse of the Spitfire she'd been in her youth. Did you think I would let you take my little cousin off to war without a chaperone? Another surprise. His thoughts fizzled out spectacularly. Rhaenyra's coming with me? The rider of Melis blinked quickly. You didn't know? He grimaced. I most certainly did not. It seems I've spoiled the surprise then. Poor fellow. She clicked her tongue and gave him a commiserating look. I dare say she'll never far from you now, not if she can help it. Well, she wasn't wrong about that. Rhaenyra could be clingy when she wanted. The Stepstones aren't going to be a walk in the park, you know. Rhaenys walked past him, forcing him to follow or be left behind. Then it is well that you have taught her how to fight. Right, okay. He could handle this. Talking her down was going to be impossible. He knew Rhaenyra well enough for that by now. She'd have to wear armor, solid heavy plate, but not too heavy to move in, and that might well delay their departure. A hand clapped him on the shoulder. He looked up, momentarily nonplussed. When had Rhaenys gotten so close? Keep my husband safe on this misadventure of yours, and you'll have my support in the chaos that comes. The queen who never was regarded him for a long moment. Be good to her. She's been through more than you know. A distant shout drew his ear, and he looked up to find the very subject of their discussion rapidly descending the stone steps leading to the beach, her Kingsguard noticeably absent for once. She and Cole must have had a fight. Good. He'd never liked the man. That's surprisingly petty of you. What can I say? I'm only human. And I don't like the way he looks at her. The dragons must have seen her, because Melis winged down with Syrax in her wake. The latter nosed into his side, demanding chin scratches just as Melis had. He gave them gladly, but somewhere between then and there, he lost track of Rhaenys. By the time he looked back, Rhaenyra's cousin was already slinging herself back into the saddle. She spared him a brief, lingering glance. Good luck, Lord of the Stepsons. You'll need it. With a mighty downstroke of its wings and a triumphant cry, Melis took flight, leaving him and Syrax be. Naruto twitched. Leave it to her to get the last word in. Syrax trilled lowly in their wake and nuzzled him anew. Yeah. You were on your best behavior, weren't you? He rubbed her snout. There's a good girl. Want to get some more fish? Rhaenyra reached them a moment later, cheeks flushed. Should I be jealous? Nah, he craned his neck back. Nah. You know you're the only girl for me. She looked toward the horizon and the rapidly retreating Melis. What did she have to say? He didn't see much point in discussing it. I think she was sizing me up. She didn't mention Alicent perchance, did she? Not at all. He sat down and let Syrax lumber off to finish her feast, her quota of chin scratches momentarily filled. Still on about that, eh? Or what can I say? Rhaenyra retaliated by laying her head on his lap, effectively pinning him in place. I want what I want. Who, you mean? He couldn't help but correct her as he began stroking her hair. She rolled her eyes. Semantics. A moment of blissful solitude followed. It couldn't last. Naruto sighed into it. I'm not even sure it would work with her. She tensed in his lap, glancing at him out the corner of her eye. Why ever not? For the love of... He flung up his arms with an aggravated shout. Because I haven't been with her. I don't know her the way you do. She rolled over to lay the back of her head upon his knees. She is my oldest and dearest friend. Please try, talk to her again, for her sake, if not mine. Her words dragged a sigh out of him. You say that, but you're going to the Stepstones with me, apparently. She scowled. Who told you? Rhaenys. His princess made an aggravated noise. I can fight. You can't stop me. He could, but it would drive a rift between them. I'm well aware. Have you been keeping up with your lessons? She laid an idle hand on her belt knife and hummed happily, but only for a moment. Then she looked past him. Do you remember this place? Course I do. There was a reason he'd come here after all. It's where we first met. Feels like a lifetime ago. Perhaps it was. Maybe this was all some fleeting dream and he was already dead. If so, he didn't want to wake up. It just feels like it's all coming to an end, you know? She shook her head. Nonsense. Our reign has just begun. Our reign, is it? He clicked his tongue at her. Cheeky brat. What's to happen with Demon, then? Rhaenyra shrugged, but he didn't miss the sudden tension in her shoulders. My uncle has ever done as he wished. He quirked a brow at her. You're not worried about your position? Using Alicent's words now, are we? She giggled. I like this position. It's quite comfortable. He rolled his eyes. You're insatiable. Would you have me any other way? A beat of silence passed between the two of them, broken only by the distant lashing of waves against the beach and Syrax lounging in the surf. How do you feel about it? Naruto glanced down at her. About what? She glanced up at him, fingers fisting in his shirt. You know what? On a whim, he eased down and kissed her forehead. How's that for an answer? She grinned, flashing her teeth at him. It will suffice, sir. Cheeky little... Two could play that game. Rather than retort, he stared at her really, truly stared until a flash of high colour speared through her face. What is it? Just happy. I love you. He flushed. Love you too. It was easier to say it now, felt more real somehow. It was nice seeing her like this, her hair down, all her barriers gone. He wouldn't trade her for the world. Naruto dipped his head down to hers. We shouldn't, she murmured, lips brushing his. Alicent's already cross enough with me. I don't want to talk about Alicent right now. He dipped lower still to kiss her, stifling her faint protest with his lips. I don't want to talk at all. Neither did she, apparently. She came alive in his arms and held him close. Her eyes sought his with intent, flicked down to his lips now before rising once more. She surged up and kissed him, dragging him down to the sands, holding him close as he held her. Love on the beach was a lovely thing indeed. 0.0, 0.0. Blackfire was heavy. Far too heavy. Heavy. Viserys hefted his blade with a grunt, considered it for a moment, then took his stance, forced himself to adopt his stance once more. His arms ached. His knees were howling at him and his lungs... Sensing his exhaustion, or perhaps just seeing it, his adversary heaved a sigh. Your grace, please. Perhaps we should stop. It was fault, he knew. Valyrian steel was meant to be lightweight, far lighter than a blade of iron or steel. It spoke to his own physical weakness that he could not wield such a sword with ease, let alone skill. It was something of a sobering realization for him, one he was determined to correct. I gave you an order, Lord Commander. Sir Harold Westerling was a good man, but also a dutiful one. He set his jaw and readied his blade. As you were, then. It had to be live steel. There was no time for practice or padded weapons. Pain was an excellent motivator. He'd never learn quickly enough, otherwise. For you see, the game was finally afoot. Viserys took visceral pleasure in that. For the first time in a long time, he felt alive again, young again, even. Perhaps that was Emma's doing. Knowing he had a wife to go home to, daughters he dearly loved, he would be lost without them. And so he would continue to play the game, though it might well cost him his life. When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. There is no middle ground. He hoped Naruto understood that. As for himself, he would endeavor to triumph while he still had life left in him. Not just for the sake of his wife, but also his dear little Spitfires. He would keep them safe. Such was a father's duty. He had set these events in motion, and so it fell to him to see things through. Let their enemies come. Let them skulk and scheme in the shadows with their honeyed words, their false smiles and their poison. Let them swing their sword and smash their shields. He would best them all, with fire and blood. Viserys lunged. 0.0. The Triarchy has massed on Bloodstone. Lord Corlys laid a map out across the table and summarily leaned over the weathered parchment. It is there that we shall strike first. Naruto peered over his shoulder, content to let the man lead the meeting for now. Theirs was something a small gathering, suspiciously devoid of Otto Hightower and Meister Melos, but for once he wasn't willing to look a gift horse in the mouth. Lords Lionel and Beesbury were present, however, which seemed to indicate at least some small tacit approval on their part. Or maybe not. Bloody nobles. He'd never understand them. Still, he had the Masters of Law, coin and ships. With the approval of Viserys, that was more than enough to kickstart a campaign. Otto and Melos and Cole could go hang for all he cared. The Stepstones have ever had a pirate infestation. Corlys clicked his tongue, capturing his attention once more. A man called Kragus Drahar has styled himself the Prince Admiral of this Triarchy. We have allowed them far too much latitude, and they have since laid claim to the islands and the surrounding waters as a result. Now that those shipping lanes have fallen, they are beggaring our ports, as I'm sure you all know. All eyes fell upon him. Naruto lifted his chin and met their stares. The Master of Coin faltered first, looking away. The amount of coin invested in this venture has been rather remarkable. The Jinchuriki sighed, clasped both hands behind his back, and drew himself up to his full height. He disliked acting like one of them, but he could play the part when needed. Your gold has been well invested, Lord Beesbury. We'll see it repaid in full. The older lord chuckled ruefully. As you have invested time with the princess, no doubt. Naruto sputtered, unprepared for the sudden verbal riposte. Oi! Lionel Strong coughed. Watch your tone. Why should I? In fact, rather approve. He was actually genuine about this. Naruto could sense that much for himself. But why? Don't make such a face, lad. The older lord rattled a laugh. I was young once myself. I knew a lass much like her in my youth, and I let her slip away. Let me tell you, it's the fiery ones you need to watch out for. Lionel coughed anew. Shall we return to the matter at hand? If we are to do this, Corlys cautioned him, and we are doing this, then we must eradicate them in one fell swoop. There can be no survivors. You must kill them all, ever pirate, slaver, murderer to a man. His keen gaze met his, worn and weathered by the seas. Can you do that? Butchering bad guys and saving slaves. Yeah, he and Kurama could do that. Naruto cracked his knuckles merrily. It won't even take a week. 0.0. Alicent rang the bell. Almost at once, the door creaked open. Rhaenyra awaited her on the other side with a smile. I'll have your answer now. Chapter 16. On that day, the Stepstones met their new lord. He greeted them not just with fire and blood, but with light. Tilda? Gone crabbing. Part 3. I dislike armor. You'll dislike an arrow in your chest even more, princess. Sir Harold Westerling tutted once and bade Rhaenyra to raise her arms. Up you go now. This is the last of it. I pray that you are right. Gah! Not so tight. It has to be tight, your ladyship, came the admonishment. It'll never protect you otherwise. Rhaenyra glowered at the Lord Commander. If looks could kill, the Kingsguard would have been a smouldering pile of ash upon the floor. Alas, said glower was rendered somewhat impotent by the fact that she couldn't exactly move properly at the moment. Naruto was of no help at all. He'd long since given up trying to hide his laughter whatsoever. Even now she could hear him snickering softly in the corner. She settled for a sullen sigh instead and tossed her head at him, huffing now as a few stray strands of hair fell across her gaze. She'd never bothered to wear armor before, never truly felt it necessary until now. Naruto had impressed upon her the need, and she dearly wished he hadn't. It was just so uncomfortable. How did men move in this? The fitting along had proven a nightmare. This armor was made for a man, not a woman, and while she had indeed grown quite a bit, several adjustments were needed. Hence being told to stand perfectly still as the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard buckled her into this gaudy get-up. Naruto didn't have to suffer through any of this, so why should she? So that's Aegon's armor, eh? It suits you. Wouldn't you agree, Sir Harold? Speak of the fox and he shall appear. As you say, my lord. Oh, stop that. I'm not a lord yet. Craning her neck as best she could, Rhaenyra caught sight of the blonde's cheeky grin and her temper flared. She knew her ancestor's armor was special, how few had ever worn it, of the implicit honor she'd been granted by being given it for this outing. Oh, Otto and his cronies had chafed when they first saw her in it. She remembered that conversation well, and father's smile as his hand chafed at the sight of her in the royal arms. Aegon's armor, your grace. Are you sure that's wise? She's hardly wearing a crown now, is she, Otto? May I have a word? But of course. In private. No doubt they were off having an argument even now, one she wasn't privy to. Bah, let them. Father had found his fire at long last, and the Hightowers would have their way no longer. Was this father's way of sending a message? Or perhaps protection? Few would be able to tell what she was wearing on Dragonback, and the slavers of the Stepstones certainly wouldn't care. But the distinction was there, for there could be no greater shield in battle than Valyrian's steel armor. She'd been forced to bind down her breasts, which was rather painful, but the discomfort proved well worth it. And with luck, she'd never have to wear this ridiculous get-up anytime soon. There, Sir Harold rose and handed her Aegon's helm, distracting her. Try it on, princess, Rhaenyra huffed. But my hair? Here. She felt Naruto lift her pale tresses, carefully tucking them back behind her ears. From there, he accepted the helm from Sir Harold and laid it on her head. Rhaenyra reluctantly accepted it. It was not a perfect fit, and she would be foolish to think so. The helm was a tad larger than she'd expected, but the smiths of King's Landing had compensated for that and provided a bit of padding, the better to make it snug against her face. It would provide her ample protection nonetheless. Not bad, she heard her intended murmur. Not bad at all. She took a moment to admire herself in the mirror. A stranger stared back at her, armed and ready. Not a girl, but a young woman. A warrior. She looked proud. Regal. Strong. Like a queen. The thought jolted her and she shook her head to clear it. No. Don't think such foolish things. Demon was the heir, not her. This armor was merely being loaned to her until the smiths forged something more to her tastes. Still, a small part of her still marvelled at it all. That father was even allowing her to ride into battle in the first place. She supposed the armor was his way of saying sorry, of doing his best to protect her while allowing her to forge ahead and carve her own path. She'd long since bid her goodbyes to him and Mother and Visenya already. Demon was sound asleep after his latest treatment at Naruto's hands, with a harsh tongue-lashing besides. And as things stood, there was nothing left but to saddle up and ride. Even then it was difficult to tear her gaze away from her own reflection. She looked to Naruto and found him staring. What is it? Nothing. He flushed a little, but didn't avert his gaze. Bless him. You look good. She preened a little, wanting to drag more words out of him. How good? Sensational. Oh, that was high praise indeed coming from him. Sir Harold coughed into a fist. Begging your pardon, but we best get moving before the small council tries to delay us for a second time. Those men again! Rhaenyra rolled her eyes. They've already called for father to divorce mother, did you know that? She rounded on Naruto with a huff, causing him to raise his hands at chest level to ward her off. I know how they plot in their councils whenever we've been sent away. Meanwhile, the lords of the realm gather like vultures to a carcass, hoping to feast on my bones. I will not be peddled off for a mountain stronghold or a fleet of ships. She would not let this betrothal be annulled. Not when everyone she'd ever wanted, was finally within her grasp. Naruto took hold of her hands suddenly, startling her. As she looked on, his thumbs stroked small circles in her palm, bringing with them just a hint of chakra to soothe her ragged nerves. She took a deep breath to settle herself, looked down, and wrapped her fingers around his, squeezing tight until all her worries and fears bled away. We're of one mind in this, aren't we? Only then did she turn her gaze upon him, desperate, pleading. We cannot let those old fools part us. Us? He caught the way she said the last word. Alicent gave you her answer? Rhaenyra bit her lip, averted her gaze, and turned away. Perhaps. His expression sank. Rhaenyra? Oh no, she wasn't letting him off that easy. Not after the hells she'd been put through today with this fitting. She would leave him in suspense a little while linger. And so she spoke, glancing at him over her shoulder. You'll know when we return, my lord. Oi, oi, don't you my lord me. Give me a proper answer. She beamed, refusing to give up the ghost. You made me suffer through wearing armor. It's only fair that I make you suffer a little as well. Something flashed in his eyes, and she felt her heart quicken in response. Gods, but she wanted out of this armor. She wanted him. It was fine, wasn't it? They were to be husband and wife soon. Sir Harold coughed, reminding them they weren't alone. Begging your pardon, your grace, but the sea snake is waiting. Yes, yes. She supposed it was high time to board the ship. Off to their bloody war, then. E.0, 0.0. Alicent flopped down onto her bed with a heartfelt sigh and gazed at the ceiling. She had made her choice. Against all odds. The deed was done, the die cast. Now she would have to live with it, whatever came her way. 0.0, 0.0. Lord Corlys noticed her new armor. Rhaenyra knew he did, if only because the sea snake went terribly still the moment he laid eye upon her. Poor Lord Corlys looked like he was one step short of an anxiety attack. His brother Vaemond looked at her like she'd grown a second head and 6 arms besides. By contrast, her cousin Rhaenys presented a more subdued reaction. A pale brow arched, mildly amused by the less-than-subtle statement, yet also concerned. Meanwhile, her cousin Laenor, ever uncaring of the higher machinations of court, saw her and dared a happy wave, one she returned in kind. Not so the adults. She could practically feel the entire room assessing her, sizing her up, considering her with new eyes, and Naruto at her side. Needless to say, the silence didn't last very long. Not at all. Her betrothed made certain of that. So, he ventured with a chipper smile, we're headed to Dwarfstone first, then? Rhaenys elbowed her husband, resetting him. Yes? The Lord of Driftmark pivoted and swept a hand across the map-strewn table, indicating the many myriad markings therein. At present, we've lost at least 14 ships, the last 3 of which bore my banner. The stepstones have now grown into a conflagration of epic proportions, while we were sitting and dithering about court business. Rhaenyra lifted her chin to stare at him. Which we are no longer, cousin. Vaemond scoffed in the background. Rhaenyra rounded on him. Is there a problem, sir? You are a child playing at war. He looked her up and down, his disdain evident. Unworthy of that armor. And I suppose you are, O master of complaints. Vaemond bridled, even as Laenor snickered. Well struck, cousin. You like to hear yourself talk, don't you? Naruto tilted his head, and Rhaenyra knew he was at his most vicious because her blonde beloved was smiling. It wasn't a nice smile either, all gleaming teeth. The sight of it made her shiver, not at all in a bad way. Talk. Complain. Do you really enjoy the sound of your own voice that much? Vaemond rather reminded her of a bloated pufferfish in this moment, such did he swell with utter indignation. You dare mock me, boy? Blue eyes fluttered shut and open in a slow, dangerous blink. You mocked my princess first. I'd say the insult is well earned. Rhaenyra flushed to the very roots of her hair. All right, maybe Demon had rubbed off on Naruto a little bit after all. Just a tad. More than a tad, it seemed. Because Vaemond ripped his blade free from its sheath, steel scraping loose with angry rasp as he levelled his blade at the blonde's chest. Mind your tongue. Naruto looked to Corlys for a moment, heedless of the sword poking against his torso. May I? At length the sea snake shrugged. Don't kill him. Vaemond sputtered. Kill who? Naruto pivoted back, and an invisible fist struck the younger Velaryon dead center in the chest, smashed him against a wall. He hung there for a moment before he slid down it, wide-eyed and choking, gasping for air. He lay there on the floor, wide-eyed and quivering, momentarily paralyzed by the sheer shock of what he'd suffered. 3 swift steps carried her betrothed to Vaemond's prone from, where a 4th raised his right foot high. From there he placed his boot atop on Vaemond's chest and held it there, grinding it down against the man's breastplate, hard enough to dent the metal with an audible crunch, such that everyone in the room flinched. Definitely some demon in him. Nobles like you make me want to puke. He leaned it, teeth bared in a rare snarl. Self-righteous, arrogant, thinking only of yourselves and your glories. He applied fresh pressure, drawing a wheeze from his prey. I could snap you in half with both hands behind my back. Maybe I should. Would you like that? Would that be a glorious death for you? Corallis coughed pointedly behind him, and almost reluctantly, Naruto withdrew his boot and allowed the wheezing man to breathe. Rhaenyra didn't swoon. She wasn't that weak. But she was very glad she was wearing armor in the instance. Enough! Corlys slammed a fist down on the table before looking back to her. I don't want compensation, Princess. I want blood. We will seize the stepstones by force and burn out the crab feeder and all his men. If, of course, your betrothed here proves himself a man of his war. Vaemond rolled onto his stomach and grumbled sullenly. Even if it means starting a war with the free cities. Even then, Rhaenyra frowned, momentarily confused. These pirates are not the free cities. Who do you think provides them with their ships and tender, Princess? Rhaenys rebuked her gently. In all of its history, the Seven Kingdoms have never started war of the free cities. Were that to happen, the losses would be incalculable. It is an inhospitable place suited only for savages. It is an inhospitable place suited only for savages. Then savagery is what we'll give them. What reason does the crab feeder have to fear us? Corlys glared at her. None. Now we shall show him. Not by sending envoys to Pentos or Volantis to find common cause. No! His fist thumped down on the table with intent. Today they learn what terror is. We bring fire and blood. Salt and sea. Speaking of which, Rhaenys refocused upon her, has Syrax seen battle? Rhaenyra bridled, unaccustomed to such direct attention. She knows how to hunt. She is not inexperienced. Just young, then, the older woman tutted. Much like the two of you. Naruto flounced into a chair. Is this going somewhere? She agreed. Get to the point, please, cousin. The point, my dear, is that you are not accustomed to combat. I am. The words drew a flinch from her. You would do well to heed my advice. It may be all that keeps you alive in the war to come. We have 3 dragons, any army some 5,000 strong, but it will all come to naught if we do not have a proper plan. Anger stirred with her. She huffed, swallowed her pride, and sat down. She actually had a point. What would you have me do? Rhaenys blinked, surprised. There may be hope for you yet. What will our plan be then? Corals inquired, reclaiming her attention. Dragons or no, proud men don't like having to look up. Naruto smirked. Just as well then. They'll never see me coming. 0.0, 0.0. When his loved ones were away, the vultures came to play. Viserys knew they would, if only because they must, now that Rhaenyra and Naruto were out of view even with the latter's doppelgangers discreetly lurking about in the shadows. This was the opposition's one and only chance to try and turn the tables, and with it, his declaration of marriage. Even so, it came as something of a surprise when Lord Jason Lannister arrived in King's Landing and requested to meet with him, alone, before the Iron Throne. Tyland's twin, as he recalled. He had considered nominating the former to his small council. He admittedly knew little about Jason himself, being more partial to his practical sibling. A shame. He needed to know more of the lords and ladies of his court, lest he be caught unawares. Your Grace, Jason bowed low before him, briefly reclaiming his attention. What I offer you, and the crown, is strength. Strength? The man was up to something. He knew not what, but he liked it not. Best to sound him out and see what it was then. He took a long breath to master himself and leaned back upon the Iron Throne. For once, it didn't cut him as he spoke. Do you think that House Targaryen wants for strength? The Lord Lannister beamed. If someone offered you more dragons, would you not take them? Do you have dragons to offer? The man clammed up. I thought not. My house is a splendid seat. To his credit, the Lord managed to rally. Rhaenyra may take her place there by my side without shame, and feel herself compensated for her loss in station. His very blood blazed like fire, so that was his aim. What loss of station? Jason blanched, perhaps finally realizing far too late the dangerous territory upon which he now trod. Well, despite his illness, Daemon remains your heir, your grace. I had assumed, many of us had assumed, that you would not wed your eldest daughter to some peasant. Viserys rose from the throne. Many of us, you say? Have your bannermen questioned my choice? Lord Jason sputtered. Of course not, Your Grace, Agro threaded through his voice. It is your sworn duty to report rebellions stirring in my kingdom. Ah, rebellion! Tylan's twin paled. There's nothing of the sort, Your Grace. And yet what is this treason I hear? He let his voice crescendo into a shout. I did not decide to betroth them on a whim. All the lords of the kingdom would do well to remember that. Now begone. The man scampered like the cowardly lion he was. Otto approached the throne soon thereafter. Once upon a time, he considered this man a good and loyal friend. Now he was wary of him, more wary than ever before. My dear friend, no, friend no longer. You tried to take Emma from me. Have you truly sunk so low? Yet he had to play the part and act as if nothing had changed. How it burned. The next words even more so. Lord Jason would be a fair match for Rhaenyra. And so he chuckled softly, hollowly, the noise low and deep in his throat. The girl is a headless contrarian. If I instead forbid her to marry someone, she would have run off with them, out of spite. I am powerless over my own daughter of 7 and 10. I pray that she finds happiness with this boy of hers. I truly do. Otto rasped a wry laugh of his own, blissfully unaware of how close he was to death. King Jaehaerys ruled over half a century of peace, while his children drove him to the edge of madness. His daughters, in particular, it is tradition, Your Grace. The boy may not be of Valyrian descent, but there can be no questioning his strength and skill. I dare say he might be one of the strongest knights in the 7 kingdoms. But only a knight. Otto shook his head. His is not fit to be a lord. He hasn't the bearing, the training. And is that why you do not approve? Strength, stability, sternness, Your Grace, came the counter. He only has one of those 3. He is not fit. What do you make of Lord Jason's proposal? He rolled his eyes. That man's pride has pride. Otto laid a hand on his shoulder and tried to change the subject. You're not only her father, you're the king. She'll do as you command. He resisted the urge to sink into the Iron Throne, knowing it would cut him if he did so. It is not my wish to command her, Otto. I want her to be happy. His hand heaved a sigh. There is another choice beyond Casterly Rock. Well, speak then. One perhaps you might be more comfortable with, given the state of your legacy. One closer to home. A sliver brow rose. Who do you have in mind? Otto did not hesitate in the least. My daughter Alicent. Viserys nearly burst out laughing then and there. It was only a supreme effort of will that kept him in check. Otto did not know. But then again, how could he? Rhaenyra was a clever girl. She'd kept her plots and plans all too close to her chest, sharing them with no one outside the family. No true Targaryen would betray her. And so the Hightowers revealed their hand. He almost found it funny. Almost. Then came the anger. Blackfire ran Otto through the gut, and the traitorous hand fell with a gasp, gripping his guts in the dark. He raised his head to say something, and he struck it from his shoulders. Your Grace? Viserys opened his eyes and snapped back to reality, annoyed to find the man still whole and awaiting a response. I am already wed. You are, Otto allowed patiently, yet you have no sons. The succession is imperiled. Demon. Would be a second Maegor, we all know this. Hightower talked over him, and he narrowly resisted the urge to plant a blade in his belly. He cannot be your heir. The people will not accept him. Alicent is young and she is fertile. She would bear you many sons. I'm more than twice her age. Yes, but it would cease the endless proposals for Rhaenyra's hand. With the succession well in hand, she could be happy with that if she wished. Laughter leapt out of him. He could no longer help himself. I came here to drink and chase off a lion, not to be suffocated by more politicking. Otto's face closed down. Let us speak no more of it for now. For now, he said, which meant he wasn't giving up. Oh, the man was going to be wroth once he found out Rhaenyra's plan. But that would be another battle for another time, another day, another year, not now. Viserys raised a flagon of wine to his lips and drank deeply to hide his laughter. Be well, daughter. 0.0. True. Vhagar lifted her head as a massive shadow fell over her. Shaking her long neck, the old worm felt the sand slough off her weathered hide. The shadow kept moving, paying her no mind. Indeed, it didn't even seem to notice her. That wouldn't do. No one ignored her without consequences. She lowed once, spread her wings, and gave chase. 0.0. The stepstones were on fire. Rhaenyra had seen them briefly before the battle had begun. little grey blobs of stone and sand boo. But these were just the first few islands, and the slavers and marauders and pirates were quite unaware of them for now. No doubt they would notice their sails in time, or they would have before Naruto sprung his trap. Perhaps that wasn't a word. He had not baited the crab, but stomped on it outright. It was like watching an inferno come to life. Rhaenyra watched from Dragonback and saw it all. Naruto was horrifying. He flitted across the battlefield with ease. She could see him ripping through slavers and pirates by the dozens, no hundreds. He didn't even need the bloody army, didn't need the dragons, any of it. This was only the first of many islands, and already he was making inroads toward the center, slashing and slaying as he went. And that was ignoring the blazing beast he'd summoned. What was that creature? No, she already knew it was, in a word, a massacre. Fire and blood made flesh. Unbidden, she recalled father's words to her shortly before she'd departed. Listen well, Rhaenyra. It is true that as rulers, we must marry for advantage to better strengthen our line. You've always understood this. I myself was promised to your mother when I was 10 and 7 years of age, and you know why I love her. She made a man of me. I do not seek to replace you, child. You've been much alone until that boy washed up upon our shores, alone and angry. I will not live forever. I wish to see you contented, happy even. The two of you must marry and soon strengthen your own claim. Shore up your succession, multiply, and if your children are even half as strong their father, well, that is why I am pleased that you have made a match for yourself, do you understand? You searched him out. You found one that pleases you as I did, and you claimed him as a dragon does. I did waver at one time. That much is true. But I swear to you now on the lives of your mother and sister, you will not be supplanted, nor will your betrothal be annulled. You may find the years to come something of an uphill battle, but I've been fighting those since the moment I was born. How he had chuckled ruefully for reasons she didn't understand. So you have. And so you will. Even so, will you choose this path? Back then, she'd given her answer. But only here and now did she truly understand the meaning of her father's words. She was marrying someone who might well be a god. People feared gods. The very world of Westeros might turn against them. And yet their children would inherit the very stars. The thought left her feeling warm in the saddle. Syrax trilled beneath her, eager for battle. Rhaenyra dove with a whoop. Dracarys! Chapter 17. Do you know what leadership is? It means the person in charge gets second-guessed by every clever little brat with a mouth. But if he starts second-guessing himself, that's the end. For him, for the clever little brats, for everyone. And this is not the end. Not for us. Not if we do our duty. Tilda? Lord of the Stepstones, Otto Hightower did not enjoy these secret meetings. Skulking about in cloaks and shadows. Such was unseemly for the hand of the king. He recognized such secrecy as a necessary evil, of course, one done or the good of the realm. But he liked it not. Now more than ever his heart sank into the pit of his stomach as he relayed the news to his fellow conspirator. They'd secured the back room of a small tavern for the purpose of tonight's meeting, a dingy den set apart from prying eyes. Or so he hoped. Few could hope to hear them over the clamour the small folk were making. A play of some sort, no doubt. He didn't care for it. There were more important matters to which they ought to attend, least of all the thoughts of these dingy peasants. In conclusion, matters have become complicated. He summarised for the man before him, clutching a flagon of ale tight between in his fists. He didn't dare drink such swill. The bartender had likely spat in it. How so, Lord Hightower? Maester Melos questioned curiously. Surely there is some way we can overwhelm the boy. Unlikely. Viserys has proven less than pliable as of late. He all but growled the last word, and as much as I dislike Demon, as much as I disdain this so-called House of the Dragon, I have my respect for it. These so-called gods can be manipulated, moulded to our needs, he stated with a huff of annoyance towards House Targaryen. But the boy... A grimace stole over his bearded visage. The boy, the boy, the boy! He was ruining everything. Years of planning, decades of preparation, all now nearly for naught. Turning his hooded head aside, he turned and spat upon the dirt floor. He's as wise as he is dense in the ways of the world we call home. He has no fears, no weaknesses to account for, can quell the rage of dragons, and holds no loyalties other than to those whom he explicitly trusts. Worse, I am not among those, as he can somehow sense my intentions before I even make them known to him. And Alicent? He'd chided her for biting her nails, and in rare retaliation, she'd locked herself in her room for the last day, refusing to speak with him. Him! The gall of it all! Did she not realize how important she was in the grand scheme of things? He suspected she might, but she had seemingly hardened her heart to him as of late for some reason. He couldn't even begin to fathom why. The language of young girls remained a mystery, even to him. Here at last, anger got the better of him, and he downed his mug with a grimace. Ugh! It tasted even worse than he'd feared. Choking it down, the hand of the king mastered himself, wiped his mouth, and glared into the dark liquid within. The king has found his spine now, of all times. He has no desire to divorce his wife, much less take another. The Grand Maester made a non-committal noise. Did you suggest? Do you think me a fool? Otto fixed the lesser man with a glower until he capitulated. I pushed as best as I could without outright making demands of him. And still the doppelgangers of that boy watch my every move in the Red Keep. He is either considerably well trained, his magic grants him such abilities, or the gods have blessed him. He muttered the last bit under his breath. Darkly, and we cannot allow such power to be taken from or used against us and our plans. Or what does it matter? The maester hummed and sampled his own drink. In the end, this changes nothing. The boy will die, one way or another. He shrugged when Otto made to protest. The war against the crab feeder has already begun. With the crown princess already en route to fight alongside him, we can continue to weaken the king's hold on the realm. Perhaps push for one of the Valerion boys to be made heir in the meantime, as Demon is unfit to rule, pester his grace to marry your Alicent, and... Another drink came and went, causing him to fall silent. Neither spoke until the serving girl scurried away. Our agenda will continue as it always has, my lord. All we need to do is plan around the boy and his reactions to what we employ to fight in our ultimate goal, he told Otto. Bah! As though it was so simple. The man's hatred of dragons and magic blinded him to the greater threat here. So you say, but his magic is incredibly powerful. We have nothing in our grasp that can overcome the kind of power he wields. Otto reaffirmed. Immunity to flame, body enhancement, speed, agility, hearing, smell, flight, transformation, conjuration, elemental manipulation, emotional sensory, familiar conjuring, and who knows what else his can perform. Not even the mages of Korth are capable of such advanced powers for all their capabilities and magics. He far outstrips them and supersedes their powers by infinitesimal limitations. His fist thumped down, rattling the table. Almost as if he were some sort of god-made flesh. Oh, if only they truly knew. Maester Melos merely chuckled. Setting your blasphemy aside, every man has a weakness, a chink in the armor. All we need to do is to find his. He hummed darkly. And when we do, we expose it and strike. Yes, patience is key to this, Otto silently agreed, then paused as a thought occurred to him. Though there may be another way to expedite matters. Melos considered him for a long moment, his aged visage inscrutable. Or, what did you have in mind? Otto told him in no uncertain terms. The older man hummed once. A risky venture. Yet, if it's successful, it would drive a wedge between Demon and his grace. A weathered brow rose. For the good of the realm, of course. Yes, but of course. Will you see it done? I shall make the necessary preparations. Until then, I must be off. The citadel awaits, and our plans must be altered to evade the boy's prowess. Melos considered his mug for a moment, grimaced, then pushed it back to stand. We will meet one another in 3 moons, yes? He asked. Of course, until then. Otto nodded. With their farewells said, the men pulled their cloaks back over their heads and went their separate ways. Neither noticed a slender figure in a white gown lurking nearby. How the tables would turn. 0.0, fire and blood, blood and sweat, sweat and screams. Screams and death, death and more death. Piles of great reeking corpses and the stink of scorched flesh all around, miles and miles of bloody beachhead for the eye to see. The campaign in the Stepstones marched ever onward, but Naruto found he took little joy in it. That's the thing about fighting a battle, you see. Everyone tells you about the glory gained and the honors won, but they don't tell you about the mess. A wise man once said, when you pray for rain, you gotta deal with the mud too. That's a part of it. The mud, blood, There were a flash of steel, a dying man begging for mercy when he already has one foot in the grave. It was war. War never changed. He was just more proactive about it now, more aggressive, killing anyone who didn't wear the colours of the king or the sea snake. In a word, war was messy. Not like riding on dragonback, burning your enemies from above. You were down there in the thick of the things. And make no mistake, he was in the thick of things, fighting on the front lines. No, he was the front lines, smashing through enemy emplacements, decimating squads of men, all with no effort at all. There were 14 major islands in the Stepstones and countless other minor islands, most little more than small outcrops in the narrow sea. They aimed to conquer them all. Lady Rhaenys had even mentioned paying a visit to the free city of Tirosh to encourage their assistance, lest they make themselves a problem. A flicker of movement in his peripherals brought him back to the bloody blender of battle. He ducked an arrow, splintered a shield, kicked a man's chest in, sent 7 more flying with a single punch, swayed aside now as Rhaenyra swooped low and bathed the sands in dragonfire. Syrax herself was soon forced to dodge as Kurama's titanic form smashed past, crushing a squad of men underfoot and sweeping aside a score more with his tails. What those didn't decimate at his jaws made short work of. Show off. Rolling his eyes, he snapped a man's neck like a twig and crested a sandhill, launching himself at another beleaguered battalion. They were doing good here, wiping out evil. He held to that notion. It sustained him in some of his darker moments, seeing the horrors of war up close. With me now! He slammed a bloody fist into the air to rally his fellows, utterly unaware of how terrifying he appeared in that instant. Whatever you do, don't die. I can heal grievous wounds, grow back eyes and limbs, but I can't save you if you die. So do your best to stay alive. With me now! Into the breach! Charge! Those would become the words of his house. And with them, another battle was won. Into the breach. 0.0. The darkness of night filled the air. Clouds covered the sky slightly, just shy of blotting out the moon overhead. Tents had been set up. The forces of the crab feeder had fled into another set of caverns, allowing the dragons to rest near their masters. Naruto wouldn't lie, he was admittedly once drawn to the beautiful scales of sea smoke, until the damn thing tried to cuddle and bury him under its body and sand at the same time, which gained a laugh from Princess Rhaenys and her husband as well as their son. Rhaenyra didn't help either. She encouraged the damn lizard like he was a dog. What was it about him that drew dragons to him? Now that he'd managed to escape, having to look over his shoulder once in a while to make sure the eager dragon wasn't following. He stood well a ways from camp in quiet meditation. They were winning this war, there could be no doubt about that, but it was still taking too long. Far too long. He'd said they'd been done in a week. Already it had been a day, and they weren't even half done. Perhaps that was arrogant of him, but he wanted to smash these pirates and be done with it. Leaving some shadow clones with Viserys was all well and good, but he preferred to be there in person. And so he began experimenting with his 6 Paths abilities to expedite things, going from Kekkei Genkai to Kekkei Genkai. Possessing the knowledge of all forms of chakra manipulation and elemental mastery of all elements was something he was certainly glad to have. He'd chucked a few lava Rasen shuriken into a few caves and collapsed them the other day, and he was curious about trying more than the standard 2 elemental bloodlines. If he remembered correctly, the old Tsuchikage Jichan could mix 3, but it was supposedly incredibly rare to even be able to do so. Belatedly, he'd then thought about how Madara had mixed lightning and water chakra to make the storm bloodline limit. He'd fought against that Hiroku guy who held multiple Kekkei Genkai and remembered how he had literally manipulated the weather. That wasn't a normal bloodline ability. No, that had to have been something more. As though he were reading his very mind, which the furball probably was, a snort echoed through his head. You idiot, of course it wasn't a normal Kekkei Genkai. That fool used 3 elements to produce an actual element from nothing. You remember how that Darui guy could manipulate electrical currents by mixing water and lightning like Madara when you awakened the power of the 6 Paths? Now add in the power of wind style. It is a pseudo Kekkei Tota, the absolute destructive prowess of nature itself. It's the same as the Ten Tails' own cataclysm when it ripped the world apart with that damn storm back in the war. Is that all it was? Naruto asked. You're an idiot through and through sometimes. Kurama despaired. Naruto thumbed his chin. I wonder. he hummed silently to himself. Closing his eyes, he slowly absorbed the Senjutsu chakra of the world. Kurama raised a brow. "What are you doing now?" "I think I have an idea or two," he replied swiftly. "Am I going to like this idea of yours?" "I'm not going to do any oi." Without warning, his mind was overwhelmed. 1,000 voices crudely bombarded his psyche, overwhelming Kurama and pushing his voice to the further reaches of his mind. All the while, the voices pressed closer against his mind, demanding to be heard. What were they, people? No, not quite. That wasn't the right word for it. He'd opened a conduit to them, to the very powers that were this world, because they were gods. His chakra spiked viciously. Rocks began floating into the air sharpened around him, and the world shuddered under the might of his power, so much so that the dragons raised their heads up to gaze towards him in idle curiosity. Naruto felt himself suddenly lift off into the air, his six paths energy never once awakening from its slumber, but he flew nonetheless, an avatar of a higher power, as they sensed his desires, his situation, and they complied. He flew away over the hills and caves and isles to a point he could discern the location of his enemies and allies alike. And he just floated, never once moving to attack or defend. He was too high for arrows or lance, and likewise too far to strike with bare hands and clones. Then something changed. The air screeched in terror as Naruto's chakra cut it apart from the jutsu's activation, a menacing red glow filling the air in which he floated in. He looked down upon the world before the very skies erupt as electricity roared out from the energy surrounding his body, crashing across the ground as clouds begin to whip up around him. The release of energy had rattled the land, the observing populace in the distance, shaking as the island was nearly ripped apart, several finding it wise to immediately drop weapons and run to safety, while others cried out in panic. The sheer force of power was equal to that of a force of nature, not unlike that of the dragons themselves. Powerful storm clouds quickly built up from the sheer potency of his energy churned in a circular motion, bringing with it a quick and powerful downpour that covered the battlefield, all sides looking up in shock and awe as the all-powerful hurricane was born from nothing. The whirlwind grew and drew in even more air, and a small tornado formed. These two cyclones combined and created an even greater distortion in the air. All of this was drawn and compressed further than before. A bolt of red lightning shot across the sky as it arced through the clouds with a rumble, the storm increasing in power as he fully grasped strength that was nearly denied in this dimension. Even now his chakra snarled hungrily as sparks of crimson electricity spark around his body. The air thrummed as lightning sparked, and the thunder born from it would crash through the sky as it turns to grow even further. The earth beneath was being pulled apart, cracking to pieces as the strength of the cyclone grew as the speed of the winds above increased vastly with each passing second. Rain began to ants down from the heavens, flooding the arena grounds further beneath as it continued falling with unrelenting force, as Naruto began to ready himself for the inevitable unleashing of an unstoppable force unto his enemy. Crimson lightning roared as it exploded across the skies, contained for only a moment within the clouds overhead as the storm continued to grow. The heavens shook, the earth rippled as chakra speared through the air and across the land. The wind grew in ferocity. He raised both arms, widely spread as he fully immersed himself where he was free to embrace his power, his chakra gleefully pulsating as he accepted the call for battle. When he spoke, his voice was that of a legion, 1,000 calls not his own as his voice echoed across the world. Let's see how serious you are about fighting me, about staking your claim to this land, he stated as rain continued to fall in shears from the high heavens. To put it in simpler terms, we are going to show you all what we can do, crab feeder. Droplets of rain hovered in the air as an unspeakable and even more unfathomable power flexed itself. The unbridled power unleashed shook the heavens and rendered the earth. From the past to the future, from the future to eternity, it would link the land and sea to the heavens. Terror was etched in the karmic endeavor of life. Thus, with time, humanity would rewrite it down to its genes, both a weapon and a tool. A spirit that had once been without form, now freed from its shackles, it would show the world what all it was capable of. White lightning flashed through the sky as the chakra from the blonde Uzumaki was unleashed in full capacity. Crimson electricity raced through the clouds and crashed down as the energy of the reincarnated sage filled the air. Red lightning surged through the clouds before it ultimately fell from the heavens as golden lightning crashed through the air and fell out of the clouds to meet the world below it in challenge. The world waged war with itself, a massive surge of power unlike anything ever seen. The storm above the battlefield was now glowing as the energies within clashed time and again with one another. A massive funnel of wind began whirling down to the earth to birth a massive typhoon. The clouds rotated with immense speeds, churning and coiling around the superstorm between with no limits. The world heeded the power of the bronze chakra and granted it all it had to heed his call, the sage's rage powering his chakra and in turn the storm that grew. The power of the Keke Tota, unveiling a new level of power not once seen in all of Planetos, a power that would not be matched by god or demon. Boom, tilde, crash, tilde, boom, tilde, zap tilde, kaboom tilde, crash tilde, crack-a-boom tilde, strike after strike, bolt after bolt, crash upon crash, one explosion after the other. The heavens reigned ultimately supreme as they unleashed their wrath down upon the splintered realm. Lightning crashed through the air with explosive force, lighting up the dark sky with frightening strength. Under the brunt of all this power, the heavens growled, the earth quaked, and the whole of the stepstones shook as red and gold lightning flashed through the air. The clouds continued to gather, growing darker and darker each second and expanding to become one massive hurricane of raw, unconstrained power. Tornadoes swirled down from the storm clouds and struck the earth, ripping the land apart. As this unfathomable power escalated further, a voice filled the air, a voice demanding that each and every person heed it, and all listened as commanded. I am the song of storms that rips the land apart. The heavens' wrath beckons me to bring destruction upon all who see. While he spoke, his once beautiful blue eyes now glowed with otherworldly powers as the unknown powers circulated through his veins. The ground began shaking under his might as the unfathomable power once again peaked higher and higher, his strength ripping the isle apart at the seams as his jutsu neared its zenith. Heaven and earth shall split and allow nothingness to embrace the gift of creation once again, tilde. The voices declared, a flash of red electricity shooting past him, his face void of emotion, his powers spreading beyond his initial control. The millstone of the stars, the celestial inferno, the rapturous celebration before the eve of creation will undo all this devastation. He chanted out loudly, "Stars fall upon those who seek to destroy, heaven shall embrace the worthy, as the hells drag away the undying." His very voice declared loudly, his voice echoing through the storm as the clashing of primordial forces began ripping the world in which he stood apart as cracks appeared around the epicenter of his growing strength, bolts of crimson lightning crashing around him as the eye of the storm swelled with power. The layers of wind grew even denser and exceeded the physical laws, quickly turning into a lethal weapon that ripped apart all of creation and began condensing into a fissure in space itself. The Keke Tota no longer containable even with the strength of Naruto's willpower. It was time to make a statement and a declaration. The gods of the world, old and new alike, Valerian, Dothraki, that mankind was on the brink, and that a herald had finally been chosen. He became the wrath of the storm. 0.0, wake up! In hindsight, Demon wasn't quite sure what it was that caused him to stir. Instinct? A sixth sense? Or something darker? Regardless, he was quite awake and aware when someone kicked down his door. 4 men dressed in black stormed in, vagabond and ruffians all. He had a split second to notice their ramshackle weapons. One held a spear, the other an axe, the third a flail, and the fourth a sword. There was nothing to suggest any sort of uniformity about them at all, nor did they bear any relation to one another. His mind whirled as time slowed to a crawl. How had they penetrated this deep into the Red Keep? No, that didn't matter. Only one thing did. He thrashed to his feet, grabbed Dark Sister from beneath his pillow, and unsheathed her with a savage flourish. He was no mewling milkmaid to scream for the guards. He would deal with this himself. And then, shock was swept away by scalding rage. "You dare attack your prince!" The first brandished their spear at him with a sneer. Submit and live. With an almost lazy swipe of his hand, Demon batted the spear away, and taking a trick from his nephew-in-law, leapt in and struck out with a roundhouse. Not today. The spearman never had a chance to retort. The last thing the fool heard was the song of Valyrian steel before he lopped his head clean off. Kicking his corpse forward, he sneered at the remaining trio. Well then? He beckoned them with his free hand. Come and die. Credit where it was due, they stood their ground. Rather than retreat, he lunged at them. He was awake, healthy, and not at all caught unawares as they had planned. Instead of a sick, dying man, they found themselves facing a Targaryen in his prime. He was the blood of the dragon, and this Dagon was Wrath. The man with the flail swung for his head. He seemed decently trained and subsequently lost his arm for his foolishness. He'd learned his lesson from fighting Sir Criston. Dark Sister cleaved neatly through his attacker's chest, putting an end to his miserable life. The axeman rushed him with a roar, only for him to step back and hew his legs out from under him, sending him sprawling to the floor. Down came Dark Sister, stabbing between his shoulders to find his heart. Not missing a beat, he ducked low and kicked back, keenly aware of steel scraping against his cheek, just shy of taking his head. He touched a hand to the bloody cut on his right cheek and chuckled once. Well, well, well. This one was better than the others. A shame he had to die. Another graceful dodge carried him into his opponent's guard, where they clashed blades. A so-called Knight of the Seven Kingdoms would have braved the blade with both hands and sought to overpower him. Not so Demon. His foe was so fixated on his gut that he never noticed the hidden dagger until it was too late. It slid from his sleeve into his hand and punched upward into the assassin's gut. Once, twice, thrice. On the fourth, he gave the blade a wrenching twist that killed any sort of fight left in the man. They crumbled with a rasping gasp, clutching their brutalized belly. His attacker fell to the ground. A kick to the chin made certain he wouldn't rise again. Planting a boot on the dying man's chest, he set Dark Sister to his throat. Tell me who sent you, and I'll make it quick. Certainly, my prince. The last living assassin grinned at him through bloody teeth, the smile of man who wished only to cause pain. The king sends his regards. Shock ripped through Demon. What? You have become a nuisance, a hindrance to the crown. Is it any wonder he would seek to supplant you? Before he could think to inquire further, the vagabond bit down on something. He shuddered once, convulsed, and died at his feet. A false tooth, no doubt, filled with poison. But what he'd said to him just now... The king sends his regards. Demon reeled back. His brother? No, Viserys would never. Would he? No, he muttered, palming his face. No, he wouldn't. All his old fears came roaring back to the surface. He'd only ever sent him away, hadn't he? To the Vale, to the City Watch. But to have him killed? Why? Did he seek to make Rhaenyra his heir after all? Even when she didn't wish to be? Such thoughts were far from logical. Indeed, a man of logic would have been given proper pause by now. Demon had never been a man of logic, and here, now, in this moment, his blood was up. They would have words about this. Chapter 18. The men will be sent to another enclave of the islands to do their part in the battle to come. My duty is to work next to my son and cousin in burning out the surrounding caves. My husband will be leading the men personally into battle at a junction to wait in ambush for our enemies. She paused, waiting for his nod, then continued. As for you, your task remains simple. Continue your path of destruction. Crush the surrounding mountains and use your massive friend to ensure they cannot scurry away like the cravens that they are. I dare say yours is the hardest job of all. Well, let's grab a bite to eat before we set out then, shall we? He smirked. Syrax lowed in the distance, drawing a laugh. Should probably feed the dragons too. Thoughtlessly he began to remove his shirt, only to pause once he realized Rhaenys hadn't left yet. Do you mind? Calm yourself, she laughed. It's nothing I haven't seen before. He flushed. You're enjoying this, aren't you? A little. Rhaenys chuckled and left the way she'd come, leaving him to find warm and hopefully dry clothes to change into. Red and black, of course. He wasn't surprised. Only made sense that Rhaenyra would pick those for him, the better to bring him into her house. A brisk breakfast saw him suitably refreshed. By the time he'd finished, he knew Rhaenyra was looking for him, if only because could sense her presence roving around the camp with Syrax lingering further behind. Gah, Syrax. Although still smaller than Meleys, She'd begun growing in haste since the princess began letting her range further and further from the dragon pit. He knew better than to come near her without a proper offering. A wave of his hand conjured a pair of shadow clones who were soon sent to fetch and deliver her a fresh basket of fish. Maybe two. She was getting big, nearly as big as Caraxes. Speaking of shadow clones, he was pleased to find that there were no reports from the ones he'd left in King's Landing. He'd know if someone managed to take them out, and likewise, their memories and emotions would become his. But nothing from the capital. After healing Demon again and the latter's refusal have a minder of any sort, he'd discreetly moved several disguised clones to watch over Viserys and Emma while keeping an eye on the small council. Nothing seemed amiss on that front so far. He was still mulling over the matter when he spied Rhaenyra over the next rise. Belatedly, he realized she was still wearing her armor, though she'd thankfully removed her helmet and let her hair fly free in the salt air. It did her much good. Truth be told, he thought she looked rather nice like this. The princess seemed to be issuing orders to a number of soldiers. He hung back and let her bloom under the burdens of command. In the end, his hesitation was for naught. She caught sight of him a moment later and a wry grin blossomed upon her face. That will be all, she dismissed those under her command. Acquit yourselves well and do your best to survive. I have faith in you. Many of the men preened under her praise and he felt an ugly root of jealousy twine around his heart. He stomped it down as they bowed curtly and departed. Rhaenyra reached him a moment later. There you are. She took one look at his attire and pouted, as only a princess could. You're to set out again? Pretty much, yeah. She huffed at that, not at all pleased. They rely overmuch on you. I know. He kissed her cheek, humming a little now as she leaned into him and returned it. Still not going to tell me what Alicent said? She leaned back with a smile, teeth flashing as she shook her head. It's a good thing you're cute. She draped her arms around his neck. I prefer beautiful. Just as I prefer an answer. He retorted, not letting her wriggle out of this. And I would prefer not to be here in the stinking stepstones. She delivered a quick peck to his cheek to better get her message across. The things we do for love. Gah! She threw that word around far too easily. He flushed, but never one to back down from a challenge, gave as good as he got. Love, is it? I just want you for your dragon. Siraz trilled indignantly in the background. Rhaenyra smacked his arm, buried her head in his chest, and mumbled something under her breath. Naruto frowned at it. Pardon? High Valyrian, she explained. He squinted at her. You're mocking me, aren't you? That begot a giggle from her. Far from it. Here, I'll teach you some. Watch my lips and repeat after me. I don't think we have the time to... Repeat after me, she sang out over his protest, and her lips pursed for a moment before she spoke what, to him, sounded like a string of gibberish. Kostagon naikavujigon ao, isarinikeya. Naruto blinked. He blinked. Princess say what now? She beamed. It means, may I kiss you, my lady? He knew what she was getting at, and played along. May I? She pushed a finger to his lips with an impish grin. Say it properly. High Valyrian, then. He tried, he really did, but ended up mangling the pronunciation. Kessa, she sang back to him with a merry giggle. Wild, baffling girl. And that means... Rhaenyra pushed herself up on the tips of her toes and kissed him full on the lips. It means yes. He kissed her fiercely then, and felt her smile against him as her arms looped around him, drawing him deeper. He held her closer, heedless of the Valyrian steel armor biting into him. Worth it. 1,000 times worth it. He settled his hands on her armored hips and resisted the urge to lift, or, better yet, find something solid and press her against it. The men cheered in the background, hooting and hollering their support. Romance was a fine inspiration, it seemed. Biting his lip, Rhaenyra drew back reluctantly, looking deep into his eyes. I don't want you to go out there. What if you get hurt? I'll be fine. He reached out and held her hands. This won't take long. Be careful out there, you hear me? A pale brow arched at him in mild amusement, ever confident. Says the one who summoned a storm. He laughed. Funny you should say that because it feels like I'm holding one in my hands. She scoffed. I am no storm. I am fire and blood. As you well know, husband. They weren't married yet, but by the sage that word hit hard. Rhaenyra released him and flounced away, hips swaying. She just had to get the last word in, didn't she? Naruto shook his head and watched Rhaenyra retreat. Then for a moment, just a moment, he saw something. He couldn't say what. only that his vision blurred for and a second silhouette seemed to overlap hers. Older and taller, stronger, a woman grown, more confident than ever before. He spied Blackfire at her side, her long hair longer still, a crown of wrought black iron upon her regal head. And there, walking side by side beside her, his golden hair a grizzled mane from many battles and wearing a sly, sardonic smile. Himself. Then that same spectre pivoted and looked his way. Wait, why in the seven hells did he have a black eye patch over his right eye? Such implied he'd been wounded, or perhaps plucked it out for reasons he couldn't comprehend. That, or that selfsame spectre smirked and spoke, suddenly startling him terribly. See you soon. Naruto blinked and sputtered. By the time he opened his eyes again, the glimpse of the future was gone. He looked left, then right, and found nothing in sight. Did you see that? Kurama yawned in his ear. See what? No, it's nothing. He'd been imagining things, surely. When one thought about oneself as an older person, one doesn't always recognize them. They tend to perceive them as different than you are now. There was plenty that could carry through to the future, sure. But the idea that he'd essentially been granted a vision of the future just now, it made him wonder if he'd become a different person at the end of the day. And today? Well, it went without saying. Today was a very good day for war. 0.0. War never changes. The campaign marched ever onward. And this time, an army of shadow clones marched with it. Armed and armoured, they reaped the enemy as a scythe would wheat, with him at their head. It was a bloody slaughter. Those that fled from them were herded forward into the next choke point, where the Valarians and Rhaenyra's soldiers fell upon them with a vengeance. And still, Naruto kept pushing, now allowing them a chance to rest. The day ground on as they took one island, then a second, now a third, forcing the crab feeder and his men further and further back until they'd nowhere to go. Perhaps that was impatience on his part. He wanted these slavers defeated, dead and done. No prisoners, no survivors. Fire and blood. He didn't fear combat, he never had. He'd taken lives before, so many times now. And these were the lowest of the low. So he treated them as such. The air blazed with jutsu. Golden arms ripped and rent with reckless, feckless abandon. Some fled from him. Others ran. He didn't give a damn. They made their choice when they started selling slaves, when they chose to prey on the innocent, when they began staking good men and women out on the beach to be fed upon by the crabs. He passed more than a few corpses like that, crawling with crabs' shriveled husks that must have died in agony. The sight of them only made him fight harder against the triarchy. Kill them all. Do not hesitate. Show no mercy. They all had to die. Those who didn't fall to his fists found themselves trod upon by Kurama. He tore open their caves and forced them to flee time and again, uncaring of their cries, their pleas, their whimpers for mercy. And still he fought on. Lord Corliss might support him after he won the stepstones, or he might turn his cloak later. He still didn't care. If he betrayed them, now or in the future, I'll have to kill him. The realization saddened him somewhat, not for the man's death, but how readily he'd turned to violence since finding himself in Westeros. A small, boyish part of him had died inside. No, that wasn't right. It was still dying even now, withering away with ever life he took. These people needed more than words. It was great if they listened, sure, but in the end it came down to fire and blood. A dragon's roar split the sky overhead, and with it came a towering shadow passing through the mists above. Naruto craned his neck, squinting curiously through the fog. Cannibal. Try though he might, he couldn't be sure at this distance. Regardless, that was a very big drake, larger than Melly's even. What was it doing here? He soon had his answer as the beast fell upon the crab feeder's fleet with a raging roar, belching fire as it snapped up pirate and slaver alike. He saw the green bloom of death even from here and winced as a particularly large ship imploded on itself in a plume of emerald death. Even as it crumbled, the creature moved on to the next, devouring the enemy with near-feral hunger. He paused for a moment, wonder if pain stabbed into his temples. Hungry. Yep, definitely him. A second shadow swooped out of the clouds. Swooping was bad, grabbed an entire ship in her talons and took flight. The vessel crumbled under her grasp and plummeted to the sea, sending the survivors shrieking to a watery grave. Another dragon, he realized, older, more decrepit. Not quite as large, but just as deadly. He didn't recognize that one. A name stabbed into his skull unbidden. Vega. Had all this blood and slaughter drawn dragons down upon them? Well, as long as they weren't attacking his side for the time being, he could ignore them. For now. We'll have to deal with them if they turn on us. And they're attacking one another. So it would seem. Vehagar lunged at the cannibal suddenly, sinking her teeth into the vulnerable joint of his rightmost wing. Mistakes were made. The larger worm tore free from her crushing jaws and rounded on her with an outraged shriek before barging her back into the shallows, smashing yet more Triarchy ships in her wake. Green flame flashed forth only to be met by a smouldering blaze of amber fire in kind. Just ahead of him, Syrax wheeled away from the two larger worms and, in her haste to escape the slaughter, flew straight into a hail of arrows. She lurched into the sky with a startled shriek. Naruto didn't miss the pained cry that followed. Just like that, all thoughts of dragons fell away. He saw red. Rhaenyra was fine. He knew she was, because she had to be. It would take more than an arrow to harm her. Yet his tempter stirred all the same. An eerily calm thought struck him. I think these Targaryens are starting to rub off on me. A screaming pirate clad in eclectic SOC garb rushed him, curved swords raised to strike. Naruto didn't bother to banter or try to plead with him. Instead, he slapped the first blade aside in contempt, parried the second, mixed the man up literally, backhanded him to stun him, caught his blades when they fell from his grasp, and used them to cut the brute's throat. By the time his victim fell to bleed out upon the sands, he had already advanced 10 steps and killed 10 score more. Then 10 more atop that. Tens upon tens. Hundreds. He swept a hand forward, conjuring a mass of chakra arms bearing Rasen Shuriken in each hand. Then he let them fly and walked through the carnage that followed. There were few forces in the shinobi world that would willingly withstand that jutsu. Here on Westeros, none. The result? Annihilation. Evaporation. Oblivion. An arrow whistled past his face, easily evaded. He pivoted and blasted the cliffside with a tailed beast bomb. The lucky ones evaporated outright. The unlucky survived just long enough to plummet to their deaths. Furious, he unleashed 2 more blasts, sending men and women screaming to their doom. Someone threw an axe at him while he warred distracted, only for him to catch it and toss it back, splitting a slaver's skull. A sword slammed into his back and bounced off. He shattered the face of its master with a single punch. Enough! No more. Kill them all. It was chaos, and yet everything seemed so slow, so distant as he slaughtered these monsters. Yet for all that, he was keenly aware of his surroundings, the salt and screams in the air, the hammering of his own heart as he tore them apart. Dragons fought in the background as more worms rained fire down upon his foes. Slavers threw down their weapons and fled, rooted. Others fought to the bitter end. Didn't matter much. He chased them down with his shadow clones to tear them apart. A lifetime ago. It certainly felt like one now. He would have simply thrashed these people within an inch of their lives and let them be locked up, trusting in the authorities to dispense justice. There was no justice in Westeros, or rather none unless you made it. So he did. His justice was violence, the mercy he gave a quick death when these slaver scum deserved so much worse. He didn't laugh, because he took no joy in this. He wasn't insane. He simply killed. We shouldn't be doing this. A small, tiny, boyish part of him began to plead. This isn't us! Naruto shouldered forward, crushing the throat of another vile slaver in his grasp. Be quiet. We're not a monster. These are people. Shut up. Maybe if we talk to them, we could... Stop talking! He reached deep inside himself, seized that voice with both hands and strangled it until it fell silent. There was no time for second thoughts here. He could ill afford them. The line between naivety and hopefulness was almost invisible. He understood that now. This world was dark, so he had to close his heart and let them die. Naruto sped up. No other word for it. His arms flicked left, right, left again, decapitating as he went. Rasengan, Rasen Shuriken. Every aspect of his arsenal came flying out with a vengeance. He was the storm. He was death. None who crossed his path lived to tell the tale. Those few allies who glimpsed his flickering form would never forget it. They would pass the tale down to their children, and their children's children. By the end of the campaign, he would earn a new title for the sheer savagery that followed. The Lord of Blood. And there at end of it all, he finally saw him. The one responsible for this fiasco. Crabfeeder. Point zero. 0.0. Kragasdraha was not a good man. Perhaps he had been so once upon a time, before the maiming, before the injuries, before the grayscale. Perhaps not. In truth, he no longer knew. He admittedly remembered precious little of his life these days. So great was his torment. He had a family. He could still recall that much. A wife. There had been children, hadn't there? A daughter and a son. They had died. Had he killed them? Had someone else killed them? He couldn't recall. Even now, when he reached for the murky memory, it slipped through his fingers like so much salt water, leaving only a dull ache in his place. Living was a haze of pain and murder. Inflicting agony upon others was one of the few ways he yet had to distract himself from the constant agony that was his own existence. All his victories meant nothing. Even the Valyrian steel sword he'd recently acquired from an unsuspecting ship's captain meant precious little as a prize. This wretched disease had already taken so much from him, and so he commanded his men from afar, unwilling to touch them, lest he subject them to the horror of his disease. But that would soon change. Soon this world would know pain. Soon this world would suffer as he had suffered. Soon this world and the 7 kingdoms would taste the horror of grayscale as he had. Yes, Kragasdraha, the crab feeder, was not a good man. He knew this. He accepted it. He embraced it. The stepstones were but the beginning. He would show them all. He was the harbinger of that pain. He would bring it to Westeros, to the very dragons themselves. He would drag them all down, lay them low, and feed them to the crabs. Or so had been his plan, until he saw him. A blonde beast covered in blood. Tens of thousands of men separated them, and yet those blazing eyes fixated upon him and him alone. This man, this monster, who slaughtered his soldiers as one would a green grass boy who'd never before held a sword, saw him. His glowing golden hand rose, and with it a lone finger pointing at him across the chaos. Heedless of the blood and the sweat of the dragons raging in the background, this blonde berserker only had eyes for him. Something in those glowing orbs frightened him. Here was one who also knew pain, and was determined to visit it upon him tenfold. His very voice rattled the world. "Crab feeder!" Kragasdraha stepped back into the cave. This island was lost. Time to retreat. The beast gave chase. The fool would never find him. These tunnels were vast, and he knew them like the back of his hand. Dracarys! He never knew who shouted the word. It sounded like a girl, but he couldn't be sure. In the end, it didn't matter. The result was the same. A rush of flame cut off his escape, forcing him to stagger back, one arm warding before his masked face in a vain attempt to shield himself. He glimpsed a golden dragon wheeling away into the air and spat at her. That moment of anger cost him most dear. A hand seized his arm from behind and yanked with devastating force. He felt something pop and balked, alarmed to find himself staring at a bloody stump. Pain was slow to come. Always had been ever since he caught grayscale, but once it did, the sheer shock of it rooted him where he stood. He balked, swaying on his feet, unable to believe what he was looking at. How? Purest gold flickered before his face. A gloved fist backhanded him and sent him sprawling. His mask went flying, lost in the chaos. Someone shouted, he never knew who. Grayscale. "He's got grayscale! Don't let him touch you!" Kragas fumbled for his hammer with his remaining hand, only for a boot to find his face. Belatedly, he glimpsed his would-be killer. How he shone like the sun. "You think this hurts?" The golden boy was furious with him, ranting and raving as he laid into him. "This is nothing!" Each word brought with it a fresh blow, more pain racking his already dying body. "How does it feel? To be utterly hopeless and not being able to do a damn thing about it? Idiot!" He felt his ribs rattle, organs rupture, flesh tear as the attack continued, battering him left, right and centre, but even then, he was left painfully conscious, cognizant of it all. "How do you think your victims felt when you staked them out on the beach and they had no way out?" Draha tried to speak. All that emerged was a bloody gurgle. Something was broken in him. He heard an awful wet snap when he tried to move. He tried to reach for his hammer, for his new sword as well, but his arm wouldn't move the way he wanted. By the time he finally found the former, it was too late. A feeble swipe saw his hand torn clean off at the wrist by a giant maw of teeth. This time, he felt no pain at all, though that might be the shock talking. Was that a giant golden fox looming over him? Was he hallucinating again? Was he already dead? Do you feel defenseless? A boot stomped down on his chest, pinning him where he lay, shattering yet more bones. Scared? Good. Now you know how they all felt before you killed them. Through ringing ears, Draha heard the rasp of steel and knew well what it meant. He'd taken his new sword, a pox on him. Well, now it's your turn. I hope you enjoy it. His good eye swiveled his way. In that moment, he experienced a single instant of blinding mental clarity. The Triarchy will never stop hunting you now. The blonde Naruto raised his borrowed blade high, eyes cold and hard. Then I'll kill them too. Valyrian steel swept down in a devastating arc. Thus ended the life of Kragas Draha,